Good, good afternoon. Good afternoon, my friends. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me. Happy Saturday, everyone. Today is Saturday, September 28th, 2024, in my part of the world, which is New York. And it is noon on the East Coast. And my thoughts and prayers are with everyone who was affected and or devastated by Hurricane Helene. I was watching some video last night out of Asheville, North Carolina, and Tampa, and it is devastating. So prayers up for any of you who are affected, and I hope you're okay. I was watching JB on WFLA doing some live coverage throughout this because Team Brittany, one of my amazing moderators, is also a moderator over for JB, and it was Brittany, like 18 hours a day. You guys were on the air. The Tampa studios were underwater practically where they were broadcasting from. The power went out. The parking lot was underwater. It's devastating. You guys can ask Bridget all the questions you want because she's going to come out later after I read to you, go over with you some of the documents that I have. Absolutely horrible. I also wanted to cover live with you today the funeral of Enrique Delgado Garcia, but I could not find it live anywhere. So I was ready. I had everything ready to go, but Boston 10 didn't have it. Margaret, thanks for being a member for 3 months and for joining from Ireland. Hello to Ireland. Hello on top. Thanks for the super sticker. Neen Mock for being a member for a month. Mavka, I have starred your question for later for Bridget. And it's fun being here, y'all. It is. Thank you, Ricky Watson, for being a member for 8 months. Wow, an OG, and I don't even see your name up very often. So please feel free to chat as long as you guys can be kind to each other. It amazes me that there are strangers on the internet and the interwebs who want a more severe punishment for Carly than her own family, her grandparents, whose daughter she killed. And there's no question that she killed Ashley Smiley at all. I am of the opinion that our children should not be tried in every case as adults. And I'm of the opinion that if we are going to put our children on psychotropic medications and other SSRIs and medications that we don't really know the full effects of, then we have to be willing to look at what the real effects of those medications could be. Today, I have the motion for a new trial that was filed by Carly's defense team. I also have some interesting information regarding Dr. Pickett, who was the expert witness for the state of Mississippi during this trial. And some other very interesting information. Guess who came out of the woodwork, you guys? Guess who came out of the woodwork when nobody could find him during this trial and he didn't show up to one day of trial? Guess who came out of the woodwork and probably sold his story to the network? Carly's bio dad, Kevin Gregg, all of a sudden surfaced to tell his story to a local Mississippi news station. We're going to take a look at that. And let him keep talking. Let him keep talking, because the more he talks, in my opinion, the better it is for Carly. So we have some interesting information. We're going to cover it all. Just waiting for a couple more people to get here. Oh, thank you, Donna. Doesn't say much, but I love your coverage and style. Thank you. Thank you. I'm kind of like an acquired taste. Either you love me or you hate me, and that's okay. That's okay, because I'm never going to sit here and not tell you my opinion because I'm a legal commentator. And what fun would it be if I tried to walk the white line all the time and not tell you what my opinions are? Because isn't that why you're here? I'm not afraid to talk about the tough topics. And that is the reason that I can bring this show to you. One of the reasons that I can bring this show to you is because I have a sponsor. YouTube is very, for those of you who don't know much about YouTube, censors a lot of things. They use an AI program to look at my content and other creators' content. And if they deem it unfriendly to advertisers, for example, the subjects that we talk about, they will strike it. They will shadow ban it. Nobody will find it. So I appreciate when you guys share the stream out. It really helps the algorithm because I'm not afraid to talk about the tough topics. And one of the reasons for that is because I have a sponsor for this show. Aura is my sponsor. And for those of you who don't know, recently there was a huge data breach, and every single American's social security number has been leaked to the dark web, and including yours and mine. I use Aura. Aura helps protect me against identity theft and many, many other things, including gives me a VPN, can help guard the title to your home. Did you guys see there was a recent news story about a couple in New Hampshire who own a piece of property in New Hampshire, and all of a sudden they went to visit their property and somebody's building a house on it, and somebody had filed a fake deed to their property. This stuff is happening left and right. And if you've ever been a victim of identity theft, you know what a hassle it is to fix it. So let's listen to a word from our sponsor, and then I'll be right back. Today's video is sponsored by Aura, and it's a really important time to be talking about them because hackers may have stolen the social security numbers of every American. Over 2.9 billion records were stolen from National Public Data, which offers personal information to employers, private investigators, staffing agencies, and others doing background checks. These stolen records include a person's full name, address, date of birth, social security number, and phone number, along with alternate names and birth date. And members of this hacker group have reportedly released this information on the dark web for free. I don't know if you've ever had your identity stolen, but I've had clients who've had their identity stolen. And not only is it a major hassle, but oftentimes before you find out, it's too late. The damage can take years to undo, and it's a hassle that you definitely do not want to deal with. So if you haven't been taking precautions before with your personal information online, this should be a huge wake-up call. You've never been more vulnerable online than you are right now. But I'm not too worried about it because I use Aura. Aura alerts me if they find my phone number, my email, my social security number, or any other personal information on the dark web. They're going to let me know fast if anyone tries to use this information to access my credit or bank accounts. They give me up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst case scenario happen. They also provide a bunch of other features to keep you safe online, all inside one app. And you can go to my link at www.aura.com/MelanieLittle to try it for free for 14 days. That'll be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal information or data has been exposed. I highly recommend you do this right now because not only is National Public Data not going to do anything to help you, they probably aren't even going to face any repercussions for this breach. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches. And if you don't want to either, you want to go to my link, www.aura.com/MelanieLittle, to try 2 weeks for free. You can thank me later. All right. For those of you, I do have an Amazon link. Thank you, Black Rose, for dropping that in the chat. So many of you write me letters and emails and just want to know like what kind of makeup I'm wearing. And it's all on my Amazon list. There's the link. Even if you don't buy anything that I have recommended, if you shop through my link, it helps the channel. So, for those of you who shop through Amazon every single day anyway, that'd be a great way to help support the channel. So many of you want to support, and I do appreciate you so much. All right. The first thing we're going to look at today is the motion for a new trial. Or actually, you know what? Let's go to Kevin Gregg. Let's look at Kevin Gregg speaking out to the news. Now, just for those of you who don't remember the timeline on this case, the killing of Ashley Smiley, an attempted murder of Heath Smiley, Carly's stepdaughter, occurred on March 19th of 2024, only 6 months ago. Carly was indicted on May 22nd of 2024, 4 months ago. On August 19th of 2024, Judge Dewey K. Arthur ruled Carly competent to stand trial. On September 16th of 2024, the trial began in the afternoon. It was a Monday with opening statements. A day and a half later, on September 18th, 2024, the defense case began. On the 20th, we had a verdict. So it was 4.5 days of trial. After less than 2 hours of deliberation, a 12-person jury in Mississippi found Carly Gregg guilty of first-degree murder, first-degree attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. And that very same day, the jury decided that Carly's sentence would be 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole as an adult in an adult prison, plus 10 years for the tampering charge. That was on September 20th. By September 25th, Carly's dad, who had been completely MIA, decided to give an interview or sell an interview to a WLBT, a local Jackson, Mississippi station. And before we go to the motion for new trial, I want you to take a look at this interview. Remember when I had Bridget Todd, Carly's attorney, on my show a couple of days ago? All the days are blending together. She told us they couldn't find him. He never came to court for Carly, never visited her once. He was in the wind, and he has been famous or very, very good at avoiding service of process. So you know that whenever you go to family court or you look for modification, or there's the child support is in arrears, you have to serve the other party. And he's apparently he's very good at evading service. So let's see what he told WLBT on the 25th, which was just 3 days ago. This was Thursday night. Today's Saturday.
You heard the name Kevin Gregg a lot during the Carly Gregg trial.
Yeah, he's the biological father of the Rankin County teen sentenced to life in prison for killing her mother.
Well, tonight he speaks exclusively with 3 on Your Side's Morgan Harris from Starkville about his daughter's early years and his emotions following the guilty verdict.
I love Carly, and I would love to have tried to help her the best I could. I kept screaming in my head, why couldn't you just have called me?
Kevin Gregg is Carly Gregg's biological father. He says it's hard to find.
Why couldn't you just have called me? He's MIA. He's been MIA. You can talk to Bridget more about it later. But he was eager to sell his story to the news. So here he is talking all about it, showing baby pictures of her.
One word to describe how he felt when he found out what happened inside of his ex-wife's home March 19th.
Ashamed, embarrassed, angry, upset.
He was ashamed and embarrassed, angry and upset. Did he have one feeling for his daughter that he apparently loves so much? He was ashamed. This is disgusting. I'm just going to let it play through, and I'll try not to interrupt it too much, but sometimes you know me, I can't hold my tongue.
It's very sad. I loved her too. We were married for almost a decade.
Gregg and Ashley Smiley married in 2005. They later had Carly. According to her father, Carly was an ordinary kid during her early years.
We had really enjoyed ourselves, and she was a wonderful child, and she was obviously multi-talented, gifted. We loved each other. We loved that girl.
He says when he and Ashley split, Carly had a tough time.
She was right before she turned 4 when she separated from me and Ashley. She had suicidal ideation on record in Warren County.
She had suicidal ideation on record at Warren County before she was 4 years old? Is he talking about Ashley or is he talking about Carly? Because remember when we spoke to Bridget Todd, she told us that Ashley Smiley also had a history of bipolar, that Ashley's mom would have testified to that, and the judge precluded her testimony. I'm going to take that back a second. We may watch this again when Bridget comes on, but just listen to what he says.
He and Ashley split. Carly had a tough time.
She was right before she turned 4 when she separated from me and Ashley. She had suicidal ideation on record in Warren County.
Gregg.
She separated from you? You mean she escaped? Ashley Smiley escaped with her 2 little children in the middle of the night from you, who was abusive to not only Ashley, but to Carly, beat them both. Also, you were a drug addict, but that you call that a separation when she escaped from you with her 4-year-old and her 18-month-old, right, sister who died shortly after. You separated or they escaped from you. Look at those eyes. Look at those eyes. And tell me if he's not tweaking on something, in my opinion.
Says he's still in a state of shock, knowing his daughter killed the woman who gave birth to her.
That girl knew right from wrong. That girl is not insane. That was a very dumb defense, if you ask me. But I wasn't involved. Nobody ever called me.
Carly
That
and
was
her
a
father's
very
mental
dumb defense, if you ask me. I wasn't involved. Nobody ever called me. He can't be found. Do you believe this? Thank you, Baby Doll. Baby Doll says, I'm a local. I'm pretty sure the news probably tracked him down. And yes, he looks high on speed. He's a tweaker. People are saying also, remember during trial, Dr. Pickett, who we're going to get to next, talked about Kevin Gregg, pulled up some of his tweets from 2012 about how he was a big fan of hallucinogenics, LSD, mescaline, mushrooms, and, you know, touting their wonderfulness on Twitter. That was part of Dr. Pickett's report. He was the expert for the state.
state were both a part of that defense. Gregg admits that he suffers from a mental illness and hasn't always stayed on the straight and narrow.
Now, yes, previously in my life, I did a lot of drugs. Yes, and I admit them.
With Carly's attorneys possibly appealing
Previously in my life, I did a lot of drugs. What about now?
the decision, Gregg believes only one tactic will help his daughter in the future.
I don't think anything's going to help Carly unless she wants to use the truth and rehabilitation and remorse, as defense tactics.
He now hopes to help Carly.
Where's your remorse, sir? Where's your remorse for beating your wife and your 4-year-old daughter? Do you believe this?
Carly in the best way he can while she adapts to her new normal as she spends the rest of her life behind bars.
I don't want to judge her. I hope she finds Jesus. I hope she can reconcile with what she did.
Hope she finds Jesus.
Again, that was Morgan Harris reporting. Kevin Gregg denies claims made during the trial that he abused Carly. We will continue to closely follow any appeals in this case. U.S. Attorney.
He denies abusing Carly, but he admits using drugs. Yeah, Christy, funny how he shows up after and he couldn't come up to help his daughter by answering questions. Nope. Couldn't. Remorse. She should find remorse. Remember, this is Carly's biological father, so she gets half her genes from him. Yes, I agree. Hi, good morning, Sarah. She says, this guy wants me to take a shower. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you believe it? Where's his remorse? Right. He denies, ever abusing them, but he admits he used to use drugs a lot of drugs, right? Isn't that what he said? This news station, WLBT3, also published an article. He sold some baby pictures of her. I'm not even going to show them right now. Maybe if Bridget wants me to show them later, I will. But do you believe this guy? So the verdict came down, I should say. We will watch through it again. We're going to watch through it again when Bridget comes, okay? She's going to come on after I go through the papers with you. I didn't think she needed to sit here. She's got kids. It's a weekend while I read the papers to you. 20th of September was when Carly was sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole in an adult prison at 15 years old. Within 4 months of her indictment. And by September 26th, Dr. Pickett was looking to get paid. We're going to take a look at his bill. But first, I want to thank you to Sherilyn for sending $10 through Cash App, who says, Carly needs our fight. Let's do this. Let's do this. Thank you, Sherilyn. I appreciate you. Okay. So by September 26th, Dr. Pickett's looking to get paid from the state. Take a guess at how much his bill was. And no spoilers if you have seen this before because it's part of the court record. Let me know what you think his bill would be for what he did here with the services rendered in this trial. This is from Magnolia Psychiatric Services. Remember also, if you don't know, Bridget Todd and her co-counsel Kevin Camp represented Carly pro bono, which means for free. Carly did not qualify for a public defender in Mississippi, and they represented her for free. People are guessing, okay, let's say 5,600, 35,000, 200,000, 20,000, 10,000, 75,000. Okay, you guys got some good guesses. They're all over the place. The state is who paid Dr. Pickett. And many of us, we talked about during the trial when we were watching his testimony about his qualifications. He had just come out of residency, I think, in 2022. He now works in a state mental hospital. He is not board certified in adolescent or child psychiatry. He's board certified in forensic psychiatry. And he was the expert witness to testify for the state. And there are many, many of you who thought that he was very convincing. You were really a fan of his testimony. And he thought during his testimony, he told us this, that there's no way that Carly could have been having a dissociative episode or having a psychotic break because, I'm just going to summarize, she didn't act like somebody you'd see in a horror movie having a psychotic break, yelling and screaming and, going crazy with crazy eyes. And she was able to send a text message without typos. And he thought there's no way that she was having a dissociative episode because in all of his experience with people who had dissociative episodes, which I think was actually none, I think he treated exactly 0 patients who had ever been in a dissociative state. In his opinion, there's no way that she could have been disassociating or having a psychotic break because she was so calm. Thank you, Radine, for the 10 and the 10. Radine Dempsey coming in hot with the super chats. I appreciate you guys, every single one of you, so very much. So this is Dr. Pickett's letter and accompanying bill to Michelle Adcock at the Rankin County Circuit Clerk in Brandon, Mississippi, dated September 26. Dear Ms. Adcock, I hope this message finds you well. In accordance with the court order signed by Circuit Court Judge, signature illegible, believed to be Judge Dewey K. Arthur, and Attorney Catherine Newman on August 20th of 2024, I evaluated Ms. Carly Madison Gregg's sanity at the time of the offense on August 30th, 2024, at a rate of $300 per hour with no cap. No cap, meaning he could work as many hours as he wanted. Keep going. Just keep going until you find something. So remember the timeline now. The judge found Carly competent to stand trial on the 19th of August. By the 20th, he signed an order that she could be evaluated by the state's expert. And then he evaluated her on August 30th, which was 10 days later. For convenience, the court order is included for your review. Considering this case's intensity and urgency, I prioritized this case and postponed all other cases. This case required a tremendous amount of effort, given the immense volume of discovery, mental health records, school records, legal paperwork, video footage, audio files, photos, journals, text messages, etc. Although this list is not exhausted, my efforts included A, many hours of extensive discovery review, B, several hours of literature review, C, a 4.5-hour evaluation of Carly Gregg with psychological testing, I would like a continuous scroll, please. D, writing a forensic report, a comprehensive 85-page forensic report regarding Miss Gregg's sanity at the time of the offense. E, a phone interview with Mr. Heath Smiley and several attempted phone interviews with other involved parties. F, several hours of correspondence with attorneys via phone, email, and text, which were waived in the invoice. Oh, that was nice of him to waive the phone calls and text messages and emails and the time spent for those. And look, experts should get paid. I am not saying that experts should not get paid, but let me know if this strains your credulity at all when we get to the total amount of this bill. G, several days of missing work, including one 8-hour shift so that I could be in Brandon, Mississippi and available for trial. These missed days were not included in the invoice. And H, 2 days of being physically present at the trial, which included testimony. These were the only 2 days charged. Despite this case's immense demands and short turnaround time, I dropped everything I was doing and put in an enormous amount of work into this case in order to satisfy the court's needs. As you likely know, an 85-page forensic report has already been furnished to the court via email due to time constraints. Remember also, last time we spoke to Bridget, she told us that there were like 30 pages alone. 30 pages alone that were just him describing what was happening in the video of the kitchen, which actually the video speaks for itself. So I don't know that that was necessary. I've never seen an 85-page forensic report in any expert. I think the ARCA report that the FBI hired investigators in the Karen Reed trial, I bet their report wasn't even 85 pages. I don't know because I haven't seen it, but I wonder. Overall, thank you for allowing me to work on this case and your prompt payment and attention to this matter. If I can ever be of assistance to the court in future matters, please do not hesitate to reach out. I mean, it sounds like a guy looking for business. I don't know. Jason Pickett, MD, forensic psychiatrist. And here's the bill. It's got an itemized timesheet here with all of his review of all of the records. I'll scroll through this slowly so that you can, if you want to later, come back and take a look at it in detail. Everything is color-coded. Kept good track of his time. And here's the time that he said he spent. 64 hours reviewing discovery. 400. Oh, that's minutes. I'm sorry. Okay, 64 hours reviewing discovery. 4.5 hours, 7 hours reviewing literature. So he had to look up stuff in learned treatises. I bet you Dr. Clark didn't have to look up stuff with this 40 years experience. I don't know. He evaluated Carly for 4.5 hours. It took him 72 hours to write his 85-page report. That's almost an hour per page. 72 hours to write his report. Not 72. 72.6666666667. 16 hours trial and testimony. 7 hours for travel. Several hours on correspondence, which apparently he's waiving. 171 hours at 300. His bill is $51,375 that the state of Mississippi will now have to bear on top of what it cost them to try this case. Tell me if you think that's a lot. $51,375. Oh, and by the way, if you need me for any of the cases, here I am. Being an expert witness can be very lucrative, in case you didn't know. Here it is broken down for you a little bit more. $19,320 to review the discovery in this case. $2,100 to look at the literature or to look things up, research. Only $1,350 to do the actual evaluation of Carly, where he met with her for 4.5 hours. That was only $1,350 of this bill. $21,810 to write the report for his time. $21,810. $2,100 for travel between Tupelo and Brandon, Mississippi. Reminds me of a song. She's as sweet as Tupelo honey. Whoever knows who sings that song, put it in the chat. Great tune. Love that song. Trial attendance and testimony, 4,800. Waived his correspondence for a grand total of $51,375. Come on down. You are the next contestant on The Price is Right. It's Van Marson. Thank you, Pat Sanford. That is Van Marson. Van the man. Van the man Marson. This is whack. Okay. During the course of my years as a civil litigator and plaintiff's attorney, I hired experts on a daily basis. This is whack. I've never paid an expert $19,000 to review discovery. $21,000 to write a report. And that is in the most complex of cases. XOXO, Jason Pickett, please pay my bill soon. And there's the order for mental evaluation. What say you, my friends? What say you? Kathy's law said theft, plain and simple. Where does that money come from? That comes from your taxes. Taxpayers in the state of Mississippi or Rankin County. That's where it comes from. Blanca, so Carly could not pay him, so he went for the prosecution to get paid. Yep. Yep. But you know what? They got a conviction. They got a conviction. And we talk about this in a lot of cases. Are they looking for justice or are they looking for a conviction? Do they want to do the right thing here and maybe get the girl this help that she needs and put her or confine her to a mental hospital for 20, 25, 30 years and perhaps give her a chance at a life, normal rehabilitation? She's not going to get any psychiatric care in prison. We talked about this with Bridget. Yeah. The old guy only spent 4.5 hours with Carly. Yup. B. Michigan, the court order said no cap, so he gets to charge what he can get away with. Grifter. I think it's insane. The date of his report, we don't have a copy of his report, but he didn't evaluate her until, I think, August 30th. And the trial started 16th of September. So there. None of this was evidence. Well, never fear, my friends, because Bridget Todd has filed a motion for a new trial. Let's take a look at that before she joins us. So hold your questions until she comes in at around the top of the hour. Oh, that's not it. That's the wrong page. Hang on. Document 283. Okay, this was just filed yesterday. No, the 26th. I'm sorry. Today's Saturday. This was filed on Thursday. It's hot off the press just for you. In the Circuit Court of Rankin County, Mississippi. Case of State of Mississippi versus Carly Madison Gregg. Motion for new trial or in the alternative, judgment notwithstanding the verdict, or JNOV as it's called for short in some jurisdictions. Over 50,000 inexplicable, Susan. Over 50,000. I think it was 51,375. Now comes the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, hereinafter referred to as Carly or defendant, by and through her attorneys of record, and files this for motion for a new trial or in the alternative, judgment notwithstanding the verdict, and in support thereof would show unto the court the following facts and matters, to wit. 1. Following her criminal trial, Carly was convicted of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. The jury announced their verdict on Friday, September 20th, 2024. Pursuant to Rule 25.1 of the Mississippi Rules of Criminal Procedure, Carly moves this court for a new trial. 3. Specifically, a new trial is required in this matter based on the following factors. A, it is in the interest of justice. B, the verdict is contrary to the weight of the evidence presented at trial. Oh, I gotta do that again. Hold on. C, new evidence and material has recently been discovered, which probably would produce a different result at a new trial, and by reasonable diligence, such evidence could not have been discovered sooner. D, witnesses necessary to establish Carly's defense were improperly excluded from testifying at the trial. E, witnesses were improperly restricted in the testimony they could provide in Carly's defense. And F, Carly did not receive a fair and impartial trial. 4, a new trial is in the interest of justice for several reasons. Carly was not tried by a jury of her peers. Carly was 15 years old when her trial commenced on September 16th of 2024. Mississippi requires a person to be age 21 and older to serve on a jury, despite the fact that a person can legally register to vote at age 18. I'm going to break from this for 1 second to tell you, in New York, it's 18. I mean, the second my kids registered to vote, and I have 5 of them, when they turned 18, each of them, quite soon thereafter, received a jury questionnaire in the mail. Yuri's math teacher gifted 10 memberships. Thank you, my love. You are amazing. To all of you who are randomly gifted memberships by YouTube, I have no control over that. It's random. You have to be participating in the chat, and you have to be opted into receiving gifted memberships. Thank you, Yuri's math teacher. You're always so kind and generous to this channel. The juror age prerequisite is founded on the understanding that with age comes maturity. Oh, and also, this is my cursor on your screen. Please do not think it's a fly on your TV and smash your TV and send me the bill. Please, thank you. Mississippi believes that only a person 21 or older possesses the maturity necessary to make decisions about the life of another. However, Mississippi also holds that a 14/15-year-old possesses the maturity necessary to make decisions about plea offers, understand the nature of the alleged offenses, comprehend the nature of the charges against them, effectively participate in their defense at trial, and face the same lifelong sentences of an adult. However, these two fundamentally opposing legal standards cannot be rectified. This contradiction in law constitutes a new trial, or in the alternative, a judgment notwithstanding the verdict. 5. The undisputed evidence at trial of Carly's mental illness, loving relationship with her mother and stepfather, absence of prior criminal charges, absence of prior violence, good school record, maternal family support, community support, the victim's testimony that Carly was not in her right mind and did not recognize him at the time of the offense, and the state's admission to an absence of motive to commit the alleged crimes do not support the verdict or the sentence in this case. Therefore, this matter calls for a new trial, or in the alternative, a judgment notwithstanding the verdict. 6. On Wednesday, September 26, 2024, a reporter for Fox 40 WLBT, informed defense counsel that Kevin Gregg, Carly's biological father, had given an interview, part of which would be aired later that night. Listen here. If you're not listening, listen up to the next sentence. In an unaired portion of his interview, Kevin Gregg disclosed that Carly was placed in equestrian therapy as a young child due to experiencing auditory hallucinations. See what he said off camera? This is in the outtakes. That her own biological father said to the reporter at WLBT that Carly Gregg was hearing voices when she was young, as a child. Defense counsel contacted the attorney representing Ashley Smiley in her civil proceedings against Kevin Gregg regarding documentation or information that might be helpful in Carly's criminal trial. However, no such documentation was identified or produced. That would have been Ashley Smiley's family law attorney or whoever represented her in family court, which is called the Chancery Court in Mississippi. Kevin Gregg refused to cooperate in Carly's defense, refused to talk to the state, refused to talk to the mental health professionals evaluating Carly, and refused to come to any pretrial hearings or a single day of Carly's criminal trial. This new information supports Dr. Clark's diagnosis of unspecified schizophrenic disorder and is likely to lead to a different result at a new trial. As such, Carly is entitled to a new trial. 7. Carly timely disclosed her witness list to the state pursuant to the timeline established by the Mississippi Rules of Criminal Procedure. Carly produced her witness list to the state on September 3rd, 2024, 13 days prior to trial. Carly's witness list was comprised of 9 total witnesses and 1 witness who would testify only at a pretrial hearing. All of the witnesses listed were known to the state prior to the production of the witness list. 8. The state's witness list was produced to the defendant on September 8th, 2024, 8 days prior to trial. It was comprised of 55 witnesses. The state's amended witness list was produced to the defendant on September 9th of 2024, 7 days prior to trial. It was comprised of 57 witnesses. However, it was the defendant the court found had engaged in a willful discovery violation motivated by the desire to gain a tactical advantage at trial. As a result, the court struck 2 of the defendant's witnesses and restricted the testimony of the remaining defense witnesses. The 2 witnesses struck by the court were both immediate family members of the defendant, both of whom had both spoken to law enforcement as early as March 19th and March 22nd of 2024. Both witnesses were present during at least one of law enforcement's searches of the crime scene. The state never contacted either witness, never requested a continuance, and interviewed several of the defense's remaining witnesses. Moreover, this case was tried less than 4 months following the indictment and 6 months after the incident occurred. There was sufficient time for either the defense or the state to gain a tactical advantage at trial. Important trial evidence was still being produced in response to subpoena in the weeks leading up to the trial. 9. The court's finding of a willful discovery violation is not supported by Mississippi case law. The radical sanction imposed by the court was improper, constitutes a gross violation of Carly's Sixth Amendment rights and due process, and merits reversal on appeal. Carly should not be placed in an adult prison or have to wait for the year or longer that it will take for the appellate courts to address this issue. Justice delayed is justice denied. 10. Due to the extensive pretrial media coverage, the improper statements made by the state during the live-streamed pretrial hearings, and highly prejudicial and improper testimony from Rebecca Kirk, Carly's counselor, regarding a book Carly wished to read, Carly was denied a fair and impartial trial. Rebecca Kirk's testimony regarding Carly's comment about wishing to read Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment was not disclosed as an oral statement by the state in their amended witness list. This testimony was of no importance to the facts in Carly's case and was elicited for the sole purpose of prejudicing the jury. This fact is highlighted by the state's erroneous belief that Ms. Kirk was concerned about Carly reading this book as the title was underlined in her records, without realizing that it was simply grammatically proper to underline the title of novels. This testimony was elicited during the state's rebuttal and was one of the last statements the jury heard prior to beginning their deliberations. Also, didn't Rebecca Kirk say she used to be an English teacher? That's why she underlined the book, not because it was important, but because that's what we do. We underline the titles of books. 11. Dr. Pickett's testimony regarding his diagnosis and undiagnosis of Kevin Gregg, Carly's biological father, was improper, unethical, and highly prejudicial at trial. Pursuant to the ethical guidelines established by the American Psychiatric Association, the Goldwater Rule prohibits and enjoins psychiatrists from offering opinions about the mental health of someone they have not personally examined. Dr. Pickett was the last witness called during the state's rebuttal, and his was the last testimony the jury heard prior to beginning their deliberations. Dr. Pickett did not possess the proper expertise necessary to testify in this matter due to his inexperience with evaluating children and adolescents, with forensic evaluations in general, and his inadequate background in child and adolescent psychiatry. Carly is entitled to a new trial based on the unfair and improper trials she received. 12. The court erred in refusing the defendant's request to instruct the jury to return a verdict of not guilty made at the close of the state's evidence, not the close of the evidence presented by the defendant, and erred in denying defendant's request for a peremptory instruction. 13. The court erred by denying the defendant's proposed jury instructions by failing to provide to the jury a definition of reasonable doubt. Remember that? The judge said in open court, "Oh, I think everyone knows what reasonable doubt is." Well, I would beg to differ, Your Honor. Not everyone's a lawyer. "14. The court erred in granting all of the state's pretrial, trial, and post-trial motions, which the court granted. Likewise, the court erred in overruling each of the defendant's pretrial, trial, and post-trial motions, which the court denied. 15. The court erred in sustaining all of the state's objections, which the court sustained. Likewise, the court erred in overruling all of the defendant's objections, which the court overruled. 16. The interests of justice require that this court exercise its supervisory powers and grant the defendant a new trial and or judgment of acquittal or judgment notwithstanding the verdict. 17. The sentence of the defendant is excessive, not supported by the evidence, is disproportionate to the sentences imposed on other similarly situated defendants, and violates the 8th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution and corresponding sections of the Mississippi Constitution. 18. Cumulative error in the trial requires a new trial. 19. Other grounds to be assigned once the transcript is available and upon the hearing hereon. Wherefore, premises considered, the defendant Carly Madison Gregg prays that this court will grant her a motion for a new trial without delay, or in the alternative, enter a judgment notwithstanding the verdict for the reasons outlined here and above. Carly further prays for such other relief, either general or specific, to which she may show herself entitled in a court of law. Respectfully submitted this 26th day of September. Carly Madison Gregg, defendant, by Bridget Todd. And that, my friends, is what I call a great motion for a new trial with a lot of great points. Bridget, give me a thumbs up whenever you're ready. I have Bridget Todd here, attorney Bridget Todd, who is one of Carly Gregg's defense attorneys, to discuss this and answer some questions. And there's Bridget.
I'm sure you'll hear my dog barking in the background as it's his favorite activity.
Okay, that's okay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. That piece by Kevin Gregg that he gave an interview, I don't even
Yeah.
know where to start with this guy. Like,
You or me either. I love the fact that he pops up for an interview, but didn't seem to care enough to come to a single pretrial hearing, a single day of her week-long trial, respond to Kevin Camp's telephone calls to him, provide us with any medical records, or be of any support to his daughter at all, other than to say he hopes she finds Jesus.
we're gonna have to play this again because I want to play this again, this piece with you on the air with me, so that we can dissect it a little bit more because you and I were kind of chatting before this aired, and I found it on my computer and I watched it live, as did you, I'm sure. And they also published a piece on their website. So let's pull this up so we can look at it together.
Okay.
And then, I mean, I'm just, wow. I mean, obviously he wanted to sell his story. So when he
Yeah.
wants to be found, he can
Yeah.
be found, right?
Yeah, I like that he doesn't want to pay child support, but is willing to make money off his daughter when the occasion pops up.
Right. And then come up with all these baby pictures of her
Yeah.
to sell to this publication, which we'll look at after. All right, everyone, we're going to watch this again with Bridget. And here we go.
You heard the name Kevin Gregg a lot during the Carly Gregg trial.
Yeah, he's the biological father of the Rankin County teen sentenced to life in prison for killing her mother.
Well, tonight he speaks exclusively with 3 on Your Side's Morgan Harris from Starkville about his daughter's early years and his emotions following the guilty verdict.
I love Carly, and I would love to have tried to help her the best I could. I kept screaming in my head.
Wait, he loves her and he would have loved to try and help her the best he could. How many times did you guys reach out to him?
Multiple. And I will also say this, if he loved his child so much, then maybe paying child support would have been helpful, because caring for your child is a sign of love.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I mean,
Especially when her mom is a public school teacher. You know, you think your daughter might need a little assistance with food, clothing, dental care.
and he had never paid child support?
He paid child support here and there, but it wasn't consistent.
Mm-hmm. So he's in arrears, basically, is what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm.
So he's making money off the child he still owes money to.
That's great. Nice. Great
Yeah.
parenting.
You know, why couldn't you just have called me?
Kevin Gregg is Carly Gregg's biological father. He says it's hard to find one word to describe how he felt when he found out what happened inside of his ex-wife's home March 19th.
Ashamed, embarrassed, angry.
Ashamed, embarrassed, angry. It's all about him.
Yeah, no, I'm ashamed and embarrassed of him.
Can you believe this? I mean, but he turns it into being all about him.
Oh, of course he does.
Of course.
He does.
Ashamed, embarrassed. He wasn't heartbroken for his daughter going through something.
Is it just me, or do his eyes seem wild to you?
Yeah, you can see how giant his pupils are, which is often an indicator that someone's on some sort of psychedelic.
Yeah.
The pupils take over the eyes, but yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I don't even know if I can make this bigger, but it's scary.
Upset, very sad. I loved her too. You know, we were married for almost a decade.
Gregg and Ashley
No,
Smiley
they weren't.
married in 2005. They later
How long were they married? They were married in 2005.
They were married for 7 years, but they separated right after 5 years of marriage. So it took about 1.5 years for the divorce to go through, but they weren't living together at that time.
Well, because she had to escape from him in the middle of the night.
Yes, with her children, because he was beating her and abusing Carly.
And that's what he says. Like we separated. Like he's really making himself out to be the good guy here, which is, you know, it's typical.
Yeah, it's what men who beat their wives and children do.
Mm-hmm. Who's the psychopath?
had Carly. According to her father, Carly was an ordinary kid during her early years.
You know, we had really enjoyed ourselves, and she was a wonderful child, and she was obviously multi-talented, gifted. You know, we loved each other. We loved that girl.
He says when he and Ashley split, Carly had a tough time.
She was right before she turned 4 is when she separated from me and Ashley.
When she separated from you and Ashley, you mean when she ran away in the middle of the night escaped with her 4-year-old. And I don't know how old was the baby at that time.
The baby was just under a year.
And then tragically, the baby passed away at 18 months.
That's right. Natalie passed away at 18 months. And a lot of, and the condition that Natalie had, children who are diagnosed with that condition typically don't live past a year. But I think the reason why Natalie lived for 18 months was the care that Ashley was giving to this baby.
Just one of the many traumas that Carly suffered as a child, losing a baby sister, escaping in the middle of the night from an abusive father who beat her mother and would see the bruises on
And
her
how
mom.
she still had to go back to visitation with him. And it was terrifying to her. That's why she wasn't calling you. She was terrified of you.
Oh my God.
He was never a safe person or a father figure in Carly's life. He was more of the monster in the closet that you hide from.
And he still looks like he is, in my opinion.
She had suicidal ideation on record in Warren County.
She had suicidal ideation on record at Warren County. Who's he talking about? Carly or Ashley?
I don't know.
That's interesting. He seems to come up with a whole lot of new information.
Right?
Gregg says he's still in a state of shock, knowing his daughter killed the woman who gave birth to her.
That girl knew right from wrong. That girl is not insane. That was a very dumb defense, if you ask me. But
That girl knew right.
How does he know? He hadn't seen Carly in over 2 years at the time of the offense.
Yeah.
And there was an active pending motion to have his visitation terminated at the time of the offense. The only issue is that because he doesn't have a job and because of his schizophrenia and who knows what else, he is so good at evading service of process, they couldn't get a court date because they couldn't get him served.
Yeah, exactly. And he wasn't cooperating with anybody. Why didn't she just call me?
No. Well, I think even Dr. Pickett listed in his written report that he had attempted numerous times to make contact with Kevin Gregg and was never able to.
Yeah.
I know that our doctor, Dr. Clark, tried the same as well. I mean, his medical records would have been great to have, but the only medical records we had for him were in a packet of divorce documents, or not really divorce documents, but custody documents that Ashley had put together in a manila envelope prior to her death that I received from Heath Smiley that he gave me during Carly's case, just because he said, if there's anything in there that can help you, use it. And I actually found a set of his medical records and a set of text messages in which he was talking about his diagnosis of bipolar disorder and the medication he had been on. But other than that, we would have had nothing.
And it was so interesting how also Dr. Pickett, we went through his bill, his itemized bill before he came on here. I've never seen a bill like that for it. I mean,
Me neither.
it was insane. He even did a deep dive into the Twitter account of Kevin Gregg and pulled up some tweets from 2012 where he was touting the effects of psychedelic drugs like LSD, mescaline, mushrooms. And there was testimony during the trial that he bragged to Carly about eating 10 mushroom caps one time. And, that's a lot, and like he was bragging about his drug use. And I mean, all you need to do is look at his pupils during this interview and you can see.
Well, not just that there was a time during a visitation in which he had tried to make his 7 or 8 year old daughter take acid with him.
Carly.
Yes. And there were other times during the visitation period where he would be so out of it on whatever drug he was on at the time that he was unable to get up off the couch and make a sandwich for Carly or give her water. And she was too young to reach the seat countertop. So she went hungry and thirsty for an entire visitation period.
How long? How did she have to go to him on weekends or?
Oh yeah, every other weekend.
wasn't involved. Nobody ever called me.
Carly and her father's
I'm gonna take that back.
Family right from wrong. That girl is not insane. That was a very dumb defense, if you ask me. But I wasn't involved. Nobody ever called me.
Carly
And that's a
her
lie
father's
because you called him a lot and he didn't return calls.
Kevin called him. Kevin Camp called him. Kevin Camp reached out. I did have one, I think, interaction with him, and it was in which he sent me text messages from him, but it wasn't helpful to the case. It was just like rants about Ashley and how Ashley was abusive. I mean, for like, I was in court, so I don't even know how long it went on, but I mean, like probably over 100 text messages in a very short period of time, but nothing responsive.
Oh, wow. He has your cell phone number. You should block him.
I did.
Today, he's probably furiously trying to text you right now.
I'm sure, but only if it were
Saying
helpful.
both the
Right, exactly.
part of that defense. Gregg admits that he suffers from a mental illness and hasn't always stayed on the straight and narrow.
Now, yes, previously in my life, I did a lot of drugs. Yes, and I admit them.
With Carly's attorneys possibly
Well, there's an admission. Previously in my life, I did a lot of drugs.
Yeah, big arm movements.
appealing the decision, Gregg believes only one tactic will help his daughter in the future.
I don't think anything.
I just want to take this back and tell us who the people in the courtroom are that we can see.
Hasn't always
Oops.
stayed on the straight and narrow.
Now, yes, previously in my life, I did a lot of drugs. Yes, and I admit them.
With Carly's
Okay,
So the lady in the polka dotted shirt and glasses
Mhm.
is Kim Phillips, who is an excellent attorney. Her office is right next door to mine.
Mhm.
We are good friends, and she was retained by Heath after Heath was being intimidated by law enforcement and didn't feel comfortable talking with them
Mhm.
further without an attorney present. And then you can see the lady in the striped sweater.
Mhm.
That is Carly's maternal great aunt. I can't see who's behind Kevin Camp.
Oh, I think, is that Heath's mom all the way on the right?
That's Heath's mom. Yeah, that's Heath's mom on the
And
other side
then
of Kevin.
Kevin is probably blocking Heath right there. And for those who don't know, I mean, her family was very, very supportive of her. I remember we watched the pretrial hearing to lower the bail from the $1 million, and the courtroom was packed on that side. It's
And
kinda
they
like
all
a,
raised their hand. It was like and
did?
that was just the maternal family.
yeah.
So there wasn't one person there from the paternal side of the family. It was all Heath, her stepdad's mom, and the maternal grandparents, maternal aunt, and all of the maternal relatives, cousins. I mean, you name it.
And everybody was so supportive of her. And I love how there's strangers on the internet who want a harsher punishment for Carly than her own family, like the parents of
Yeah.
the mom that she killed.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's wild to me. It's wild.
I-
But
I
nobody
just-
thinks that she should get help.
I just, one of the things that I've thought about a lot since Carly's sentence and all of this is I don't know when we as a society decided it was easier for us or we became much quicker to pass judgment on somebody than we did to extend them compassion.
And Grace,
Yeah, and grace.
I know.
And maybe to accept that, that's a crazy situation, but I don't know what happened.
Mhm.
I don't know that family. I don't know what's happened there. Like, I should probably just try to read more about it and find out rather than shoot my mouth off and say something that might be hurtful.
Yeah. It's the wild, wild world of the internet where the people have no filter and they can hide behind fake names and just say whatever they want to say.
The anonymity of it, I guess,
Mhm.
makes you feel like you don't have consequences.
Yeah, the keyboard warriors,
Yeah.
Let's go on with this.
His attorneys possibly appealing the decision, Gregg believes only one tactic will help his daughter in the future.
I don't think anything's going to help Carly unless she wants to use the truth and rehabilitation and remorse, as defense tactics.
He now hopes to help Carly in the best way he can while she adapts to her new normal as she spends the rest of her life behind bars.
How is he going to help her in the best way that he can?
He's never helped her once at all. If anything, he's contributed to making her life harder than it ever had to be. And one thing about Carly's case that's so hard for me, not just because I'm a criminal defense attorney and I've represented kids in juveniles and youth court and, who have been abused or who are there, because they're a juvenile delinquent and they're having a case there. But as a custody attorney and someone who's tried a lot of custody and visitation cases, it just makes me want to pull my hair out every single time we have to send a kid back with a parent who we know has hurt them, who we know is dangerous, who we know is unstable,
Mhm.
whether it's for custody, visitation, supervised visitation, you name it, because all we're doing is re-traumatizing this kid any way you want to, slice it. And the fact that he repeatedly traumatized Carly and abused her and that she was afraid of him. And now he has the audacity to say, that the only thing that can help her is if she tells the truth. Well, Carly has told the truth from day one about this case. She didn't do anything that she could have done that would have been easier for her to do. That would have been something that someone who was diabolical or an evil genius or a sociopath or a psychopath to do, which was what her dad's doing, is casting himself in the role of the victim
Mhm.
instead of taking any accountability or responsibility. Carly never denied the fact that she shot her mom, she shot at her stepdad. Not one time. She never one time victim blamed and accused either of her parents, her stepdad or her mom, of abusing her or being mean to her in any way. But the fact that, and she could have, that would have been an easy story to tell. It would have been sympathetic to Carly. Like I've said, any attorney who's ever tried a case can tell you the hardest thing in the world as an attorney to prove is that something didn't happen.
Yep.
Especially sexual abuse, because children's bodies just heal quickly. And so, it would have been an easier story for Carly to tell. She could have thrown blame on her deceased mother, who wasn't there to dispute it,
Mhm.
on a stepfather that was still in shock and grief and didn't have a very good rapport when he was testifying, which made people cast doubt on him anyways. But she didn't. She told a harder truth, that she was having these psychological disorders because she had inherited a mental illness and it wasn't diagnosed properly through no fault of hers. And even then, she still wasn't blaming the doctors who treated her.
Right.
We talked about how hard it is to diagnose significant mental health problems in teenagers for a variety of reasons. I think sometimes it's just a hard truth. A hard truth is harder for people to accept than an easy lie. And Carly could have done it to her own benefit all day long, but she didn't, not once. She never
Mhm.
made one allegation.
She didn't. And if she was that much of a master manipulator, diabolical mastermind, that's what she would have done. Let this play out.
I don't want to judge her. I hope she finds Jesus.
But isn't that exactly what he's doing, judging her?
That's
And-
exactly what he's doing.
What?
I said, oh, that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. And now she needs to find Jesus.
I hope she can reconcile with what she did.
I would
Yeah,
like
that
to
was
know
Nathan
if he
Harris
can
reporting.
reconcile with what he did.
Yeah.
I would like to know when he's reconciling the years of physical abuse that where he victimized his wife, and the abuse that he subjected his young daughter to, and the neglect of not even, like, being so drugged out of your mind you can't take care of your kid for a day.
Mhm.
Like, where's his apology to Carly? Where's his accountability? Where's his finding Jesus?
Mhm. Well, he's never going to take accountability for anything. You could just see in that interview. The
does
first
he
thing
think
he
he's gonna-
thought was he was embarrassed.
Yeah, but not of himself.
No. But he
Not
was
of
embarrassed.
himself.
No, he was embarrassed for himself, not of himself, but for himself, that this was going to be on the news, and then she has the same last name as him, so this is going to fall back on me. Therefore, I'm embarrassed by this.
He's got a lot of things to be embarrassed of in life. The fact that he doesn't have a job or gainful employment, the fact that he failed to support his daughter financially over the years, emotionally, that he failed to be a stabilizing figure in her life, that he abused her, that he abused her mom, that he subjected her to domestic violence. I think we have a real problem in this country, and I hope something will be done and courts will start actually examining and really taking action in why are we letting men or people who abuse their spouse physically have unsupervised visitation in custody?
Now, that's a great question, and that's why I talk about the tough topics on this channel, because I have the same problem with it. I'm going to assume that you guys call it the chancery court, which is like family
Yes.
court here, or, during the custody proceeding and all of the dissolution proceedings and child support proceedings, that there was evidence that he was abusive. Yeah.
No, I was not involved in any of that. That was all before my time. But I believe that there was a lot of testimony put on. And I know for a fact that Carly came to the Warren County Chancery Court and testified there on a number of occasions about what she was seeing at home, what was happening on visitations, and nobody believed her. It was only after her mom put some type of GPS tracking device in her backpack that recorded the speed at which Kevin Gregg was driving with Carly, which was over 120 miles an hour with
Oh my
this
God.
7-year-old in the backseat of his car, that they went back to court and were finally able to, I think, suspend his visitation temporarily, and then they ended up giving him supervised visitation.
So many people can see it. Look, Brooklyn says, Brooklyn John, I can't stand looking at the bio that he terrorized his ex-wife and Carly. Other people are just calling him a sperm donor. Like,
Yeah.
it's horrifying that we're putting
If you
children into these
wanna-
situations.
Yeah. Like, I will tell you a keystone factor of how you know when someone has abused their wife or child and they're lying about it. They accept no accountability, zero accountability for what happened.
Sure.
Zero.
Yeah.
And then they victimize themselves. Like, instead of saying like, no, this just didn't happen, I don't know where it's coming from, they have to go a step further and make themselves the victim.
Of course. Well, she should have listened to me the first time.
Yeah. I don't know why she wouldn't have called me. She hadn't heard from you in 2 years, Kevin. Why would she call you?
Believe women, says Auntie Ree.
That's right.
It's horrifying. Thank you, Jenny Grace, for the 20. I'd like to know how Carly is doing after being in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day, hoping she's being treated with kid gloves since she is, after all, just a kid. Prayers that a new trial is granted. I support her. Let us know how she's doing and what happened with her transfer.
Well, she was transferred last week. I wasn't notified that they transferred her until the family notified me that she had been transferred into CMCF, which is a correctional facility in Pearl. She's being housed there in quarantine for 2 weeks, which is like solitary confinement. And then after that, it's my understanding she will be out of solitary confinement. But while she's in this quarantine period, no one can talk to her.
So you can't talk to her either. And you had been visiting her like daily. I was shocked when you told me that they didn't tell you they were transferring her. Wouldn't that be a courtesy that they would usually extend to the attorney?
I don't know about that. I know that after she is convicted, everything, like, it's almost like she's property of the Mississippi Department of Corrections. So they don't really have to do anything.
Property, the same way that states treat children as property. And that's why they're allowed to go visit their abusive parents, because they're property.
Yeah. So I think the saddest thing about this is the tragedy of Carly's life, which I think is the tragedy of a lot of kids' lives until they're aged out to adulthood, is they never stop being treated as property of someone else, whether it's a parent or some institution, the courts, the jail. I mean, they really are the most vulnerable members of our society. They don't have their own voice. They can't vote. A lot of times judges won't let them come in court to testify about what's happening at home. It's really just a terrible situation.
And you said that she did testify in some of those, chancery court proceedings as a child, as even younger than she is now. She's only 15 now.
Yeah.
So that must have been when she was how old? She was testifying in court.
Oh gosh. I know one of the times was about some incidents. She would have been 6 or 7. And I know another time she went back to testify. I don't know how many times she testified, but I know it was more than once.
I mean, the trauma of having to get up there and testify against one of your parents is also, severe.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of times, the parent's in the room and you can be subjected to cross-examination by the parents' attorneys. Now, I will say this. We have a lot of great chancellors here in Mississippi who will, what they'll do is they'll ask by agreement, like, I'm going to take the child, depending on the child's age. The younger they are, the more likely they are to do it. We're going to take the child in chambers, and counsel can be present, but I'm going to do the one questioning. Counsel can just write notes. Mm-hmm. And so that can be very helpful. And the judges go in chambers and they take their robes off and they sit down so it's not so intimidating, and you're not having to do it in front of your parents. So that can help. But there are some judges who don't do it that way.
That's devastating to a child. I mean, the long-term effects of that are enormous. You said in your motion papers that there were some outtakes of the interview with Kevin Gregg that in which he admitted that Carly had been undergoing equestrian therapy because she was hearing voices when she was a young child. Tell us about that.
Right. Now, we knew from some of the other older counseling records we had of Carly that Carly had been in equine therapy or equestrian therapy at some point in time. We couldn't get those records because it was so long ago
Right.
that the person who was doing that had shut down her business and moved out of state, and no one had contact information for her, and we just couldn't find her. But there had been references to it, here and there. We just didn't know why that therapy, and considering everything she'd been through, I mean, we just considered probably the divorce or custody issues or the loss of her sister. I mean, all those things seemed to fit, but there was never any reference to why or how long she was doing that. But I was in Greenville the day at another trial, the day that they started airing clips that this segment was going to be aired on the nightly news on Wednesday, I think.
I think it was Thursday.
Was it Thursday? I thought
so.
it was earlier than that.
I
think it was.
Yeah, maybe it was Wednesday because you started. I think you filed your motion after that.
Oh, that's right.
So it was Wednesday.
And and so I was in Greenville doing another trial that day, and all of a sudden I started getting text messages from Kevin Camp and Kim Phillips, saying, "Have you seen the news?" And sending me clips of where they were saying that Kevin Gregg had given an interview, and I was like, "No, I haven't seen any of this." And so I said, "Hey guys, I'm in Greenville in trial. I'm fixing to have to put my phone up. Can somebody reach out to the news station to see what's going on? What is this fool fixing to say?" Because we knew no matter what it was going to be something negative. And the next thing I knew was on my drive home from Greenville, which is about 2 hours from where I live here in Brandon, where Carly was tried. Kevin Camp called me, and he was telling me that he had spoken with one of the reporters who had done the interview of Kevin Gregg, and she said that they had to actually shorten the interview segment, they were just using a clip because he was so all over the place. I think was the phrase used. So all over the place that it was hard to kind of keep him on topic, and also that he had made an allegation that I was the attorney. That had represented Ashley Smiley in her November of 2022 civil suit to terminate his visitation.
Yeah.
I wish to God I was, but I wasn't. And so Kevin had called and asked me, he was like, he was like, "I didn't think that was right." And I said, "No, Kevin, he's confusing my name, Bridget Todd, with the first name of the male attorney that Ashley had, whose first name was Todd."
Oh.
And I said, "So I think he's confusing the last names." And I was like, "No, of course, I never knew anybody in this case until after this happened." And Kevin Camp then said that the reporter had relayed to him a comment that Kevin Gregg had made, stating that the whole reason that she was in the equestrian or equine therapy to begin with was because she had already been having these auditory hallucinations, hearing voices, which to us was like, "Oh my God, why didn't somebody say that beforehand?"
Right.
And so I was like, "Well, I'm putting that in our motion for new trial because that's definitely new evidence." And it would sort of back up and corroborate what Carly's older journal entries had said, what her friend SK testified to, which was, "Oh yeah, Carly did tell me she was hearing voices before March 19th.
Right. And if her own father is saying that.
Yeah. I mean, if there's some record of it out there, we would love to have it. I just don't know where to even try to get it from, but maybe Kevin Gregg's got it somewhere. I don't know why he wouldn't send that to us.
Well, he wouldn't cooperate with you at all.
Yeah.
Why would he? It's all about him and how embarrassed he is by this.
Oh,
That
yeah.
his daughter did this. He's embarrassed.
Yeah. All of his one little text rant to me was all about what a horrible mother Ashley was and how Ashley had been abusing Carly and how Ashley had significant mental illnesses. I mean, just nothing about him.
Never once did he show any sympathy for the death of Ashley, this woman that he loved so much that he was married to, as he said in his interview. So yeah, I mean, We just saw this happen in another case, in the Karen Reed case. There were, she did a couple of interviews. One of them, I think, was with Boston Magazine, and in court, the attorneys wanted all of the outtakes, all of the footage they didn't use, the reporter's notes and everything, and they got them. So good luck getting them.
They were able
Yeah.
to get around the shield law.
Yeah, there is no shield law in Massachusetts.
Really?
Yeah. So the notes had to be turned over, the outtakes, and it can be done, because I'm sure this guy was rambling on for quite some time, and they only used a portion of it, but you should be entitled to get that stuff. And if not, make the court so order a subpoena and get a marshal or whatever sheriff to go serve him and bring him down there, because he seems to have a lot to say now.
The only thing about that is, what people don't understand is, we can't, if you're serving a subpoena, you can't make somebody come outside to get it, and you can't leave it out the door. Like if you were serving them with a subpoena where they have to show up for something,
Mm-hmm.
you can't send it in the mail. You can't bust in their house, even if you're a sheriff serving it, because they won't come out
Right.
and get it. Like you literally have to hand it to them, or have some way of showing that they've accepted service. A lot of people think if they don't touch the subpoena, they're
Yeah.
not served, and that's not true.
Right.
You can put it at their feet as long as they're like physically outside and there. So that's the problem with Ashley couldn't serve Kevin Gregg to go back and actually get an order terminating his visitation because he doesn't have a job. He can just sit there all day if he wants and not come outside. And he genuinely seems to believe that anybody trying to contact him who has anything to do with this case is somehow a government agent.
Yeah. Well, he's schizophrenic, right?
Yeah. I mean, so I think it sort of feeds into his paranoia.
Right.
And I wouldn't doubt that he is still doing drugs. So that might be another reason he might be hesitant to answer the door for law enforcement.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a good, private investigator. He's got to leave the house sometime, right?
You would hope. Yeah.
You would hope. So many people had tried to, or did actually contribute. They wanted to help with the appeal to the GoFundMe, which was taken down because I guess it was in violation of the
It was in
rules.
violation. Apparently, somebody reported it, and Bob, the maternal grandfather, who was so touched by everybody's contributions, and just to show you the kind of salt of the earth person he is, he's been writing these handwritten thank you notes to send to people who have donated.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's just so touching. And it makes me tear up every time I think about it, because that's just the type of person Bob is. And this entire case has really been such a struggle for him and for his, wonderful wife, Vicky, because they lost their daughter. They've had to see the hell that their granddaughter's going through. They really haven't gotten a chance to, share some of the grief that they've experienced, or even process it for the loss of their daughter and the tragedy that's happened, before they're now just sort of stuck in this purgatory of the criminal process of now trying to get a new trial and appeal the conviction of their granddaughter. And that's really hard for them.
And the state is going to pay Dr. Pickett $52,000 because there was no cap on what he could charge.
No way the state's paying him $52,000. I mean, there is no way they're going to pay that.
You don't think? Oh,
No, they don't have that kind of money to pay one doctor for one mental health evaluation of one defendant.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know. He's going to be mad if he doesn't get paid. Maybe he'll flip over to your side.
Yeah, maybe that'll change his opinion.
For those of you who are asking, I've pinned in the video description below. I've already put the new fund for Carly's appeal. It is at $1,000 right now. I know that last time we posted it, GoFundMe took it down because they don't allow defense funds. It had been up to, I think, almost $3,000. So I pinned it in the chat for those of you who are wanting to contribute in any way. I'm sure they're writing personal thank you notes. I mean, the family cannot thank you enough. I've never seen an expert bill for $52,000.
I was just going to say, have you ever? Because you've seen more criminal cases than I have. But have you
Well,
ever
I handled civil litigation, but we needed more experts. We needed accident reconstructionists, biomechanical engineers. I've never seen a bill for $52,000 in the most complex of cases. So that's insane, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And I have never, I don't know how you would spend 21 hours writing a report. Like, nobody wanted an 85-page report to begin with.
How many pages? You said 30 pages of it were just, going over the video in the kitchen,
Telling us how the dog felt.
frame by frame, how the dogs felt. Right.
How everybody in the video, which is nothing but speculation, and the report couldn't even be entered into evidence.
Right. So I joked about it during the trial. I said, is this guy getting paid by the page? An 85-page report?
I know, like a little bit of a Charles Dickens, right?
It was crazy. Crazy. And the whole thing about crime and punishment. She never read it.
Oh, God. I can't tell you how mad I am about that. I just thought that came out of the blue. I mean, it's a reference in her counseling notes, but it's of no merit or importance. Nor did the state disclose that in the state's amended exhibit, the state's amended witness list with their 57 witnesses. Never in there once did they say that would be part of the testimony that they elicited from Rebecca Kirk. So
Wow.
I think it's got to be excluded, and we objected to it coming in.
Yeah, you did. I remember that. Also, I don't think people understand like how difficult being a defense attorney is, because they gave you a list of 57 witnesses, but they never told you who they were going to call and when they were going to call them. So you've got to be prepared to cross-examine.
Oh yeah, you've got to have
57.
every report. Oh yeah, you've got to have every report. You've got to go through every body cam. And I'll say this, Kevin and I have tried many other criminal cases. We have tried other high-profile criminal cases, including one back in May of this year that we had tried, that had been tried in November and had ended in a hung jury. And so they retried it in May of this year, and that was in Hinds County. And Hinds County's witness list had the 7 witnesses that they were actually calling listed. So it was very, and most of the time when you get a witness list from the state, it really is just the witnesses they expect to call.
Right.
So we were a little flabbergasted by the 57 witnesses, but we knew that this trial could go on for 2 weeks if it needed to. And Kevin and I both doubted that they would actually call all 57 witnesses, but we certainly thought they would take the whole first week of trial just to put on the state's case.
So did we. We were shocked that it started on Monday afternoon, and by Friday afternoon, we had a verdict sending her to adult jail for life without the possibility of parole. Thank you, GV, who says that you are a very good human and lawyer, Ms. Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cat Artist, for your super sticker. Brooklyn Janet, thanks for the 5. Was the forensic psychiatrist for the state go in with the aim to find Carly sound of mind? Did he go in with a confirmation bias to come to that conclusion?
Well, so technically, whether the state retains an expert to do an evaluation, like Dr. Giuliano, the female doctor, the redhead, who I really like and think she did an excellent job and had a really good, I think, bedside manner, with Carly. And I would assume she has that with all of her patients. They always say, I'm not for the defense. I'm not for the state. I have been retained by the state to do this evaluation, but I let everybody know on the front end that my opinion is based on the conclusion I come to. I'm not being paid to find an opinion. And that's true of defense experts. When we retain someone to do an evaluation, they always tell us, I hear your concerns. I'm going to take them into account, but my opinion is my opinion. I'm not a hired gun. You're not paying me to write something. I will tell you the conclusion I came to, and then you might decide you don't want to use it or you do. And that was true of Dr. Pickett, but our argument was that he absolutely came into that with a confirmation bias. And I think a lot of it was in the amount of discovery that he reviewed prior to ever meeting Carly seemed to be what formulated his opinions in his interactions with Carly. And one of the things that really bothered me, and I think showed the confirmation bias that he had, was the tone when he was reading the journal entries on direct examination, he was intuiting a tone that Carly had in writing those journal entries that he couldn't have known she had when she wrote them. I mean, that's him imparting that without knowing. And never once during that 4.5-hour evaluation that I sat through every second of, did he ask her anything about those journal entries or her state of mind when she wrote them?
Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. So he's just coming to his own conclusions based on his own, look, he's not very experienced. He came out of residency in 2022.
Right. And I think the bill that he sent sort of helps highlight his lack of an experience. Nobody sends a bill like that.
He spent 64 hours reviewing discovery before ever meeting Carly. 64 hours.
I don't know how you can spend that kind of time reviewing discovery in the short time frame that he had.
Right, because he didn't examine her until the 30th of August.
We got his report on September 9th at 7:00.
So in 9 days, he spent 64 hours. I mean, in 9 days, he spent 171 hours.
And he's from Tupelo, and
When
that's
did he
about
sleep?
that's a 2.5-hour, 3-hour drive from here to Tupelo, just getting back and forth. So he wasn't reviewing anything on August 30th.
I mean, that's interesting, to say the least. Thank you so much, Brooklyn Janet, for chiming in with the 5. Mama, she says, it's making me angry. He keeps referring to Carly as his daughter, as that girl. He never once did he say my daughter. That girl.
Yeah.
Thanks,
It's
Mama, she.
interesting how she's only his daughter when it's something he wants.
Oh, yeah,
Or
when
when
it's
he has pictures to sell. I mean, what kind of a dad sells baby pictures of his child to a news outlet?
yeah. Yeah, let's take a look at that in a second. We'll go to that article. I just did the math. So in 9 days, there are 216 hours available. There are 24 hours a day. There are 216 hours. He billed 171 hours of those. So in 9 days, he only slept for 45 hours.
And he has 2 young children.
And did nothing else but work on this case.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, go on with your bad self. Experts can make a lot of money. And then in his letter, he also said, if you have any other cases for me, happy to look at them.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I couldn't decide if he was mad at them or not when I read that.
No, I think he was like, I'm available for any more
Let me know.
looking for business. Metaphorical Oracle. Thank you. Michelle Pfeiffer and Priscilla Presley on the panel. Oh, look, that is really nice. Thank you so much.
You do look like Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh, really? You do look like Priscilla Presley. Both of us are very complimented by that. Thank you guys so much. Rara Monty, does Carly's father have a right to visit her in prison, even if she doesn't want him to?
No, he does not. Carly has to, and I believe this is true of every inmate, they have to put on their visitation list who is allowed to visit them. She even has to put me down, her attorney. And I made sure that she was reminded of that when she got to the MDOC to make sure she put me down and Kevin Camp down. Because unless they're disclosed as a visitor that can come visit, you can't come visit. And so I don't think that Gregg has ever put enough effort or attention into his child to try to visit her when he had visitation and she was just a regular kid going to school. I don't see him putting forth the kind of effort it would take now for him to go to Pearl to visit her at a correctional facility, but he will not be on the list.
Yeah, she doesn't want to see him as far as you're telling us. Christy says, blame Carly for not calling him first. Yeah, that's what he did right there in his super duper interview. Thanks, Cat Artist, for your super sticker.
And a kid is not going to call somebody who they don't see as an authority figure or a safe person. And that's just never what Gregg was. I think that's a question Gregg needs to be asking to himself every day when he looks himself in the mirror is, why wouldn't my daughter have called me? What did I do wrong as a person and a dad? How can I show up for her now?
Yeah. And it seems like Heath, her stepdad, is like the dad she never had because he's there mouthing, I love you, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. After she's sentenced to 2 life, and they had looks.
Getting intimidated by law enforcement, feeling pressured to change his story, feeling like he needs an attorney to go with him because he's so afraid they're going to press charges against him in retaliation for not changing his story or what they feel was cooperating with the state, by not changing his testimony. I mean, that takes guts.
Yeah. Yeah. And the entire, like we said, the entire family, both sides, well, Heath's side and Ashley's side are standing behind Carly.
100%.
Serenity says Carly is mentally ill, which can be hereditary. Also, trauma is a contributing factor. 2 life sentences without parole for a child is not justice. Thank you, Serenity. There are so many people who disagree with you, internet people who just want her to do more time than someone like,
And I don't know why. Like, what does that get us? Like, does it make Carly better? No. Does it make society better for her being housed? No, that's tax dollars that are going to unnecessarily fund the lifelong imprisonment of someone who has something to contribute to society. It was Carly's dream in life to go to MIT.
wow.
MIT. One of the first things she told me after the conviction came down and we went in the back and we were waiting for sentencing, is she sort of looked up at me and she was crying and she said, "But I wanted to unify physics. I'll never get that chance now." And I told Carly, I was like, "Carly, I don't even know what that means, but I'm sure we can still find a way. Like, it's not over yet." I mean, this is somebody who had a lot to give to society, but she'll never get to do it now. This is just taxpayers' dollars going to throw kids and throw people away. And prison doesn't help people with mental illness.
Right.
There's no psychological or psychiatric care. You get dental care, you get health care, like general health care, but you don't get mental illness needs are not being met. And it's a drain on society and on taxpayers to have to pay all of this money to this institution that's just keeping people behind bars. Carly was never outwardly dangerous at all before this happened. She had some self-harm behaviors, but I think a lot of people have self-harm behaviors in different degrees. I think it's completely normal, and you see it a lot, that people with mental health issues particularly will turn to marijuana or alcohol to self-medicate.
Sure.
That doesn't make her a bad person. And it's no remark on the quality of a person's character that they have inherited a mental illness and that they're suffering from the side effects of that mental illness and that they are actively in treatment trying to get help for the things that they're experiencing, but they're not getting the diagnosis that they need or the real treatment they need. I mean, that's not anybody's fault, but it's a shame.
100%. And when you combine an inherited mental illness with severe childhood trauma, you're almost, and you're getting it from both sides of the genetic pool, your mother and your father, and you have all of that childhood trauma. Even so many people turn to drugs and alcohol as a way to just
Absolutely.
forget about what happened to them, to escape.
That's right. To numb it, to make the symptoms not so bad, to not feel so on edge, so irritable, to quiet the voices, to be able to sleep at night when you have these racing thoughts that you can't get to.
And if her father was doing drugs in front of her all the time, that while she was a child, when you grow up and that's your normal, maybe you don't think
she knew he had mental illness.
Right.
So I'm sure part of her thought, maybe he's doing the drugs because the drugs help him with his mental illness. And if I'm like my dad and I have his mental illness, then maybe this will help me too.
Right. Exactly. Because that's your normal. She's still, she was 14 years old. Or to all those people who say 14 years old is enough to know right. You're not even fully developed. Your personality is not developed until you're 24 or 25.
Well, and here's the thing, how does a 14-year-old really have the ability to make lifelong decisions about their life? And we all know that's BS because we don't let kids sign up to go to the military at the age of 14.
Mm-hmm.
We don't let them vote at the age of 14. We don't let them decide that they can drink alcohol at the age of 14. We don't let them be on juries at the age of 14. We don't even let them drive at the age of 14 because we don't think they have the maturity necessary to be able to handle the real consequences of operating a motor vehicle. But we can try them as an adult and send them to jail.
Oh, sure. Let's lock them up and throw away the whole key.
Yeah.
Mafka, a lot of people have this question. Can you ask Bridget about the outfit choices for Carly?
Yes. Can you show the clip again of Carly when we were standing at the podium when you were asking me the people behind her?
Yeah, sure. I can get to that.
Because what a lot of people don't understand is when you're dressed out in plain clothes, but you are being detained at the detention center like Carly was, when you're brought out for trial, you have this really heavy, thick vest on underneath you, a bulletproof vest. And you see that white?
Oh yeah, you can see it around her her collar.
That's the vest. And when I say vest, I don't mean like vest like this. I mean like it's from here to here, like on the shoulder and neck, and it goes all the way around and it goes all the way down past her hips. And it's very bulky because of the bulletproof nature of it. So, and also when Carly is in detention center and she's coming to court, she has to be court appropriate. So I can't put her in things that have logos on it or, sweatsuits or things like that. But because of the vest and how long it is, how far down it goes on the hips, that pretty much ruled out any pants or skirts, because it would just look like she was pregnant, or like, and you can't really even, like, it would be too ill-fitting if you found something that could go under or around the vest. So we had to do either dresses or jumpsuits, but it needed to be something that would either be like to the knee length appropriate, which is what we call court appropriate. And also it had to be, no monograms, nothing like that. Yes, or at least in Rankin County.
That everyone has to wear a bulletproof vest in Rankin County? Every defendant?
If they're detained, if they're being brought out from the detention center, yes.
Right. I think also people were pointing out that pre-trial, she was dressed in what we would call it looked like Catholic school uniform. She looked much more childlike. And then during trial, her outfits were much more adult.
Well, so I caught so much hell from everybody about the clothing that I got for her that was pre-trial. Oh, thank you so much. That was pre-trial, because everyone was like, she's manipulating the jury. She's trying to manipulate the public by dressing her as a schoolgirl. Well, no, but by the time you get to something that, is going to fit Carly, who is in really not even juniors because she's so petite. I mean, she was 14 at the time, but she was more in 12-year-old clothing. By the time you find something that's not sparkly or glittery or has some picture or logo on it, and it has its knee length and it's dress, but it's not like tutu skirts, you're pretty much left with kind of the school uniform attire.
And she is a schoolgirl. You're right.
Yes, she was a schoolgirl.
I mean, people thought that was so manipulative. They're trying to manipulate people pre-trial. She trying to make her look like a child. Well, she is a child, number one.
Yeah, she was. That wasn't me. She's a child. So I tried to find jumpsuits that would fit her, which I think that's what she's wearing there, like a jumpsuit. And again, just something that would be something someone her age would fit her, would wear, is court appropriate. And I apologize for my fashion choices to all.
I don't think you need to apologize. I think people just want to know, was that an intentional manipulation to make her look like a child?
No, that was just all I could find within that realm. Because if you go look at any store nowadays and you try to find something that's going to fit a 12-year-old, which is Carly's size, that does not have glitter or some design that will be distracting,
right? Or some rude words on it.
Picture, but that is appropriate for a 12-year-old to wear to court, because 1 to 12-year-olds go to court to begin with. But that is courtroom appropriate with, so knee length or dressy without being ball gown or tutu skirts. You're not left with a lot of options. But then when people were like, oh, you have her dressed like a schoolgirl, you're being manipulative, I was like, okay, let me try to find something else. So we went with, just plain navy colored jumpsuits, because also what I think people don't always realize is that when you're trying a jury case, I felt really bad for wearing the dress that I was wearing, but I was out of dry cleaning that day.
I think you look great.
I felt bad because that's a pattern dress. And one of the things that's kind of honed into you when you're trying cases in front of a jury is do not be distracting. You don't want anything you're wearing, whether it's your jewelry, your makeup, your clothing, your shoes. You don't want to be up there talking to the jury or questioning a witness and the jurors be more focused on what color is that dress, or where did she get that shoes, or I like those earrings, or I think I have that same, I think I have those same earrings, or I wish I had hoops, instead of listening to what's going on. And when you're in jury trials, people tend to get distracted.
Yeah, they do. Well, I'm not in this trial because this trial was the fastest, the fastest trial we've ever seen.
Yeah, I felt like it was super fast too.
There was one like super heartwarming moment. I don't think I played it last time you were on, but I definitely pointed it out during the trial. We rewound it a couple of times when, well, I guess what we just saw, that was when she was sentenced, right? So it must have been another day. She was wearing a black dress that had sheer sleeves and a cute little collar. And Heath's mom looked at her and said, "I love your dress." And she mouthed it. I don't even know if you've seen the replay of that. And Carly was like, "Thank you. Isn't it pretty?" And it was just, I just wanted to cry.
Well, and so I've seen comments from people, or people have asked me, like, why are there pictures of Carly smiling at different, times during, the trial or during this? First of all, Carly's not having visitation with any of her family. She's being in solitary confinement. So if you can imagine being in a small room without a window or a TV or a radio all day long, 24 hours a day, and the only way you get out of that room is if your attorney comes to see you for a little bit, and then you're walked down a hall to another room with no windows, and you see your attorney, and then you're walked back to another room with no windows, no cell, no radio. So no music, no TV, no internet. I mean, nothing other than books and coloring books. And I will say this, the head of the detention center, I asked, and he gave me special permission to bring Carly a packet of crayons so that she could at least color in her cell and not just have books. And that was really nice. He did not have to do that. But the people at the detention center would tell me, like, "Bridget, we're your biggest advocates for getting Carly out of here. We don't like having to keep somebody in solitary confinement. We know it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, this is not us. Like, we're having to do this because of the federal mandate." And so that's the first time she's getting to get out of that room. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Right. And she's seeing she hadn't seen her grandparents.
That's right. Hasn't seen her grandparents, hasn't seen Heath, hasn't seen Heath's mom. She's finally getting outside. She's getting to see people. She's curious. She's also nervous. I mean, she's nervous, and it's heartwarming to see your family when they haven't seen you for a while. And the polite thing to do is when somebody like mouths to you, "I like your dress. I like your shirt." "Oh, thank you." I mean, that's just what people do.
And she's on the highest dose of Abilify, which is a psychotropic medication, right?
Actually, I have one of my family law clients is actually a psychologist, and she told me that she thought it was really interesting that people were drawing various conclusions about expressions Carly would make, because she said, as a psychologist watching this, I could tell that she was on a very high dose of a mood stabilizer, because there was just no affect. She was just very flat the whole time. And she was.
Yeah. Until the end. And that was heartbreaking to watch. Donnie Not Wahlberg, does the youthful offender unit in Pearl separate girls and boys? Is that where she is? Is she in the youthful offender unit in Pearl?
Right now she's in quarantine. We've been told she will be put in the youth offender unit until she is age 18. So that was good news for us.
Oh, so you didn't know that? Because last time we spoke, we thought she was going to adult prison.
Yeah, we did. We did.
So
but
that's
it's always up to the MDOC where they house people.
And had they made that determination already?
I suppose so, because they're housing her at the CMCF, where they have a youth offender.
Well, that's good news.
Yes, but the males and females are always separated.
Okay, so that's good. Thank you, Donnie Not Wahlberg, for the super chat. Rich Buddy, how does she feel? How do you feel that your client got essentially more time than P. Diddy is even facing? Thank you.
Defeated. Heartbroken for all the kids we have in America.
Yeah.
You know?
CJ's mom, 55. Can you ask Miss Bridget about Mississippi legislature passed State Bill 2017, which prohibits life without parole sentence for juveniles? Miller v. Alabama, Montgomery v. Louisiana.
So Miller v. Alabama was somewhat distinguished by Jones v. Mississippi. Jones v. Mississippi says, "Oh no, you can give them life without parole all day long. and you do not have to ask a separate question in what we used to call the Miller hearings. You don't have to do this separate Miller hearing in which the jury needs to determine that they had the maturity and necessity to appreciate the offense at the time that it happened. A lot of people know about Miller v. Alabama, and which is a forerunner of Montgomery v. Louisiana. A lot of people don't know about the most recent case along that line, which was distinguished from Miller v. Alabama and Montgomery v. Louisiana, which is Jones v. Mississippi.
Interesting. So we saw Miller hearings in Ethan Crumbley. I think that's where a lot of people are getting this from. Ethan Crumbley was a school shooter in Michigan, and there were extensive Miller hearings in that case. And
Jones v. Mississippi came out because it was fairly recent.
And is that a U.S. Supreme Court case?
That's a U.S. Supreme Court.
Wow. And there also was a statute, I think, that I pulled up during the trial that was just enacted in July in Mississippi. And Carly is the first in the state of Mississippi to be sentenced under that statute. But now I can't remember what that statute said.
So Jones v. Mississippi was decided on April 22nd of 2021. So that's a fairly recent one. So that statute went with how you can present to the jury the issue of the way that you can raise the issue of the sentencing of I'm so sorry, my mind is blanking out right now. Of the actual defense we had, which was not guilty by reason of insanity. So, and I think on one of the pretrial hearings, I think the very last one, when we were talking about, or at the actual trial, when we were talking about sentencing or, jury instructions, there was a little back and forth with Kevin and Judge Arthur, because he was like, Your Honor, we weren't exactly sure the right way to word this. And the judge mentioned, no one is. That's because this is the first time, to my knowledge, anyone in our state has really had to go into this. And it was, and it was a question that Kevin and I really had to think about, like, how do we present this to the jury? Like, just because even if you sentence her to, even if you find her guilty by not reason of insanity, she's not walking out of the courtroom today. She would go to a mental health facility where she would get the treatment she needs. And then they would decide, based on the treatment they give her and their interactions with her, when she would be rehabilitated to the point that she would no longer need to be held in a mental health facility.
If ever, right? If ever. Joanna wants to thank you for your unbelievable kindness. You're a rare human being, Attorney Todd. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you so much. I think we're all a lot kinder than people think.
I think so too. Well, you and I are.
Yeah, we are.
And my chat also.
Yeah. Maybe it's because we're moms.
Maybe. Girl Ryan, Carly's own medical providers didn't think ahead, had the agency to sign her own HIPAA releases, but the state could charge her as an adult. I am outraged.
Yeah, I mean, that was really everything about this case was really interesting and odd because of Carly's age. I mean, I had her sign the HIPAA, and I notarized it myself and sent it to the medical provider. And they said, their lawyer said, we're not even sure. We can't find any legal authority that says a 14-year-old can sign their own HIPAA waiver. You need a legal guardian. And I said, her only legal guardian is dead. Like, she's been certified as an adult.
Right.
And they're like, that's cute. It's cute that it's real cute that your court can certify her as an adult, but that means nothing to us. So I was like, what can I do to get the medical records? Well, have her sign a consent and authorization, just releasing the records to you. So I went back over there and did that and sent it. And they still wouldn't give me the records because they were like, the issue's still the same. I mean, we're not trying to be difficult, but,
they also didn't want to be sued.
Yeah,
I mean,
they didn't want to be sued.
They didn't want to be sued. All of her providers lawyered up.
They did.
Right?
They would not talk to us, despite reaching out and saying, hey, I will come to your attorney's office and we can all sit down with your attorney in your attorney's conference room and I can just ask some questions. I'll give you a waiver saying we're not going to sue, like whatever.
And that's why you couldn't call them in your case in chief, because you did not know what they were going to say. So many people were like, why didn't they call her treating doctors? And it was so interesting that they waited, of course, until their rebuttal case to call any medical providers or experts, like you said. So it would be the last thing the jury would hear.
Yeah.
You pointed that out in your papers. Yeah. Hi, Elaine. Thanks for the 20. Working and lurking. I'm a bit behind, but how could they allow a non-board certified doctor to evaluate Carly? My stomach hurts.
I think he was board
Pickett?
certified,
He was board certified in forensic psychiatry
but
and
not child and adolescent.
right. And Dr. Giuliano,
They
she's
were all board certified.
yeah, Dr. Giuliano evaluated her for competency to stand trial,
Competency to
right?
stand trial. Yes, and she was board certified.
Yeah, she was. Thank you, Elaine, so much. He was not board certified in adolescent and child psychology, however. Hi, Nina. Thank you for chiming in. Ms. Todd is a classy attorney. Thanks for all the insights. I agree. No minor should get life without parole and no mental health support in jail or prison.
Yeah, me too. And one thing that I want to bring up is I know a lot of other states, particularly Utah, has incorporated a lot of mental health courts, which are similar to drug courts, but they just deal with people with mental health issues. That's not something that we have in Mississippi yet. I don't know if they have it in any of y'all states, but it's something that we all need.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that we could all do to help all the other kids and families like Carly's, which is really advocate for our states and our local justice systems to incorporate mental health courts.
And they hear cases that are only involving, I mean, what kind of cases do they handle in mental health courts? Because we don't have them here.
Well, I mean, I think you see a lot of times, especially like on the lower level, like with drug issues, like just the same thing with the drug issues, a lot of people who are getting these petty misdemeanor charges, or you're seeing them come up in court again and again and again on petty charges, and then it gets a little bit worse and a little bit worse. It's due to mental health issues.
Yeah.
And they just never get the treatment that they need. And there's no way to provide that to them through a court, and unless there's a mental health court that can order them into treatment facilities and order them to have mental health evaluations.
Yeah. Oh, Nina, I'm sorry. I was just about to highlight your second super chat and it got lost and deleted by accident. But I think if I remember what it says, I will put it up. But thank you, Nina, for your second super chat that I deleted by accident. Jason says, if people like Bridget were judges and DAs, our systems wouldn't be near as broken as it is. It makes me sick that people have lost all empathy. Thank you, Jason. We have a lot of empaths here and we feel the same way.
Yeah.
CJ's mom says, ugh, Red Jones versus Mississippi. Can't believe that. I was being so hopeful in my heart. Thank you, Miss Bridget. Can we write and send Carly stuff now?
Not just yet. We have to wait another week. I'm trying to get all of her information. And as soon as I have that, I will email it to you so you can make everyone aware of it.
Okay, that would be great. I have pinned the donation fund in the chat if anybody would like to contribute to the appeal, because I don't know how much Dr. Clark charged you, but Dr. Pickett charged the state.
I will tell you right now, Dr. Clark charged $10,000 and he was in and out.
Soup to nuts.
Yeah, and he was he was literally having to fly from Massachusetts to here to rent a hotel room for one night and turn around and fly back. Same thing for her trial. I mean, that man is a mensch.
He's a mensch. That's right. I use Yiddish a lot on this channel.
Me
He's a
too.
mensch. Yes, I do.
He
It's a mishigash. This whole thing was a shonda. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Wow. So Dr. Clark, who had 40 years experience and wrote a report, evaluated Carly, travel, time. I don't know that he had to research any literature because, Dr. Pickett did.
He did. He, in fact, in his report, he cited 6 or 7 different articles talking about, violence and aggression, tendencies towards violence and aggression when people with bipolar disorder are put on antidepressants without having mood stabilizers. In fact, I think that is the literature that Dr. Pickett evaluated, was what Dr. Clark cited in his report.
Because Dr. Clark's report was rendered before Pickett's.
That's
so
right.
Pickett had a copy of Clark's report.
Mm-hmm.
So there you are, my friends. Dr. Clark charged the family only $10,000, and that was paid by the family, right?
That was paid by the family. Attorneys can't pay.
Right.
We can't use our own funds to pay for defense.
You can't lay out expenses. Somebody else had pointed out, like in the comments on another stream, it's not true. Attorneys can front expenses. Okay, that's in a civil case. So I'm a civil litigator. As a plaintiff's attorney, I can lay out all the expenses, and then when the case settles, I can they pay me back. And you can do that in civil litigation, like I did against the Catholic Church. You cannot do that in a criminal case.
You can't do that in other civil cases.
Right.
Family law case, you can't do that.
Right. Other civil cases, other than like plaintiff's work, civil litigation.
Like a class action type thing.
Yeah, or car accident cases.
Yeah.
Like we lay out expenses all the time, and at the end of the case, because we take cases on contingency, we don't charge
Right,
by the
you're getting
hour.
it back. Yeah.
We get it back. Carol says, Far Texas brothers unalive their kid's sister. R word by the stepdad. Police didn't do their job. Please take a look. Oh, okay. Thank you. I will. Far Texas. What it happened in Far Texas? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Carol, for your 5. Nina, Miss Carly, do you think Miss Todd, do you think Carly would have killed her mom without a gun ready? Thank you, Nina.
No, I don't. I don't. I think that was just a part of what created this perfect storm. I don't think Carly would have killed her mom if she hadn't had access to a loaded gun.
That was one of the things I just could not reconcile in my head. And I did go into this case with an open mind because I wanted to know so much more. I had so many questions. And I was just like, she's self-harming. Her mother knew, and I'm not victim blaming. Her mother knew that she had issues. Her mother had issues because Ashley's mother would have testified to Ashley's own bipolar if she was allowed to, which she wasn't. And to keep a loaded gun like that in a place where Carly knew where it was, I just couldn't get over it. Nina, my comment was that every school shooter is claimed to be a sociopath, but Carly was struggling with mental health. Difference?
Well, I mean, I don't know anything about school shooter cases. I don't represent them. I don't have an intimate knowledge of those individuals. I have an intimate knowledge of Carly. So I can tell you the difference right now is that Carly didn't go into a school and shoot up people and like shoot the school, shoot random people. In fact, even when the friend she called for help came over, she didn't pose any threat to that friend. When she fled the house, she didn't pose any threat to the general public. The stepdad testified. She did not recognize me. She was terrified out of her mind to the point that even after I was shot, I thought there was an intruder in the house. So the difference is in the details and the difference is in the facts of the case.
Right.
You can't take this group of people and lump them together,
No.
which is what people want to do. That's
Right.
the difference.
Right. And as you told us during the last stream, in Mississippi, there is no law with regard to securing
right.
weapons. So had Carly taken that same gun and gone to a school and pulled an Ethan Crumbly or another school shooting, her parents would not have been prosecuted.
That's right. That's right. And even if they passed it now, the law doesn't work retroactively. I'm fixing
So
to grab my charger for 1 second because my
yeah,
computer.
go ahead. Nina, I will say, I'll take you off for a second. I will say, Nina, that I think that Ethan Crumbly had severe mental health issues, severe, if we're going to talk about that. And also the school knew. The school knew about his disturbing drawings and all kinds of other things that was going on with Ethan, and they did not tell the parents. So yeah, I mean, every case has to stand on its own facts and its own merits, but I absolutely think that Ethan Crumbly is one who had severe mental health issues, and it remains to be seen whether or not the most recent shooter in Georgia had severe mental issues because of the trauma that he suffered and the abuse and the years and years of horrible things that happened to him. So we're gonna have to see. Kay says, does Miss Todd think there's a chance to get Carly the help she needs in AL? I don't know what AL is. This is Mississippi, or not AL. Or is the culture there leaning more towards punitive solutions? This is Mississippi, not Alabama, just to correct you, Kay.
Well, I think once Carly is incarcerated in a correctional facility, the purpose of the correctional facility is punitive. You know, it's there for punishment. It's not there for help. It's not a mental health facility. She's not going to get the mental health service that she needs in a correctional facility.
Right. This goes back to what we were saying before. Kate said, why couldn't Carly be housed at the youthful offender unit where she is now while awaiting her trial? The current practice of solitary in adult jail needs to change.
I agree.
Said,
I don't know
CMCF houses youth offenders. Is Carly on the youth offender facility? She is now, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But she's in quarantine, so.
Yeah, which they do with everybody who's initially brought there. They have a 2-week quarantine.
Jen Lee says, does Carly know about us out here supporting her?
She does. She knows that she has a lot of support and she's very grateful for it. And she's very touched.
Oh, that's great. Did you go visit her after our last show that we did?
I did.
You were going to go there that day, I think, right? so that she knows that people are supporting her and want to send her books and things. The GoFundMe status, the new fund is in the chat. I've pinned it. It's also in the video description here. I will say that, how much did I say we had at the beginning of the stream? $500. What was it at the beginning? It's up to $1,760 now. So for all of you that are contributing
so much.
you're so generous, and thank you for
Thank
your
you so
support. Jessica says, just playing devil's advocate here, but Dad is not credible when he says Carly isn't insane, but credible when he says she went to equine therapy. I'm just going to chime in here and say that insane is a legal definition. And
Yeah.
whether or not she went to equine therapy is a factual. It's a factual.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I mean, but I hear what you're saying. Like, we
Yeah.
can believe him when he says some things and not the other. Well, we know for a fact that Carly was in equestrian therapy. We don't know why. There's no record of that. We can't get any record of that. The first time we ever heard a reason for why she was actually in that therapy was what a reporter relayed to Kevin Camp that Kevin Gregg had said. So we go with the best evidence we have. But I mean, I get what you're saying, but maybe he's got a document that we don't have or something that can lead us towards that.
I mean, that's huge. If she was hearing voices as a child when he was around, I mean, that goes to the history.
Yeah, if a therapist found that.
What do you say to Kim, who says, I think she got the proper punishment? She shot her mother in cold blood.
How do you know? You weren't there.
None of us
You
were
weren't
there.
there. You don't know this child. You don't know the family. You don't have an understanding of mental illness or the fact that Carly had inherited mental illness. How do you think you know more than the second leading child and adolescent psychiatrist in the nation who teaches psychiatry at Harvard?
And also, Dr. Pickett wanted us to believe during his testimony that she absolutely was not in a dissociative state because she was calm. He made us think that people who are in a dissociative state are like we see in horror movies.
Yeah, but that's just not true. Anybody that's ever worked on a psych unit or had experience with people who have disassociated, and we've talked about even the mildest forms of disassociation, which are, and we see people do it all the time. When people are having to discuss traumatic events, they tend to disassociate from it in different ways. And
yes,
we've all experienced that in some ways.
Abuse, people who are victims of, I'm sure that in the PDD case, we're going to see a lot of testimony from people who were repeatedly forced to have, intercourse against their will in drug-induced states, and will often testify that they look like they're above their body, looking down on what's happening to them, because it's the only way that they can survive such events as that. And sadly, I've worked with so many of those people, and it's heartbreaking to hear the stories. Joanne says, I have a child who suffered severe neglect and physical abuse before I got him. Causes major psychological harm. Yeah,
it absolutely does. And there are long lasting effects of abuse that, for a child to experience abuse and neglect, like that doesn't just stop when the child becomes an adolescent or a teenager. Even with the course of, treatment, they can get help, but there are lasting, lifelong repercussions to that.
Yeah.
And Carly was traumatized not just by her dad, but by two different court systems.
Right. Family court, or the chancery court, as you call it. And
and so many kids are
criminal
across our
court.
country.
Yeah. Susie H. asks, question, did Carly want to testify?
Carly was not, originally Carly did not want to testify. By the time we got to trial, Carly was more open to testifying, but only but she only wanted to testify if we felt like it would be helpful or needed. Because of Carly's incarceration and how quickly the case was going to trial, I did not have time to really prepare Carly, and I was not putting Carly on a witness stand and letting her be cross-examined by Catherine Newman, who's very good at her job, when I felt like Carly was not in an emotional state that she could handle that.
Not to mention she's heavily medicated. She's been in solitary for 23 hours a day for 6 months. Who knows where her head was at?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
You can't. I mean,
she's exhausted. She wasn't sleeping, for the, few weeks before the trial. She wasn't sleeping very well. during the trial, she wasn't sleeping, as I'm sure we could all understand. I mean, I wasn't sleeping during the trial.
I can imagine.
I think that's very understandable.
Not to mention every little micro expression that she made on her face was picked apart by people on the internet. So imagine
everything, the turn of her head. I mean, Carly was such a nervous wreck, and and she was just so nervous that I would pull up pictures of like my dog or something on my phone and, tell her like, well, if this is getting too much, just tune it out and doodle and you'll be fine. And don't think about it. And then people were mad that she was drinking a Coke. Well, get over it. I brought it.
you did. You're feeding her Coke. And how can a 15-year-old make that decision? It's
such a heavy situation for anybody to be in, like any person who is on trial for their life, regardless of the circumstances. It is such a heavy burden. Put a 15-year-old in that.
Yeah. Right.
Carol,
I think you're talking about that case in Texas. So thank you for that. Nina, I can tell you in Switzerland, minors under 16 cannot be charged at all. Otherwise, a murderer gets 10 years max. Wow.
Yeah. We have a very different system here.
Yes, we do. And like jury of your peers is like, back in the day when they started that all the way back, in the beginning of our country, it's when, your peers y'all lived in the same neighborhood. Everyone knew everybody. Yeah. Right. And so the jury pool really was your peers because everyone knew everyone in town.
People that could put themselves in your shoes and understand where you're coming from. I mean, think about how hard we had to work to get things like, a Batson objection, where where the state's trying to strike people on the jury of color because, we said that that's not fair. Like, hey, wait a minute. They're entitled to have, if it's a female defendant, she's entitled to have female jurors. If it's an African-American defendant, they're entitled to have African-American jurors. If it's a Latina or a Latino defendant, they're entitled to have Latino or Latino jurors. Like, you can't strike these people because if they have these similar features. Carly doesn't even have a chance to have anybody who can put themselves in her shoes because you can't even be on a jury in Mississippi unless you're 21.
Yeah, I don't think you're saying that we should have kids on juries, but again,
But I think it has to change. Like, if we can't have them on juries, if you have to have a certain level of maturity to be a juror, then how can you be expected to have a certain amount of maturity to be tried as an adult? If you can't be judged as an adult,
right,
then why should you be tried as an adult?
Was there an option for a bench trial in this case?
No.
That's interesting because even in Massachusetts, where we're looking at some pretty backwards laws, you do have the opportunity for a bench trial. So she had to have a jury trial. There was no choice for her.
That's right.
Sarah, thank you for the 20. Attorney Todd, you are a clear example of grace and class. Thank you for doing a mostly thankless job. A lot of people hate criminal defense attorneys until they need one. We are so grateful for you.
I would say most people hate criminal defense attorneys.
I think most people hate attorneys in general until they need them. That's why I say I'm a recovering attorney, because nobody likes to admit they're a lawyer, right? You go to a cocktail party and like, what do you do? Oh, things and stuff. Yeah. Like people just hate lawyers. Yeah. That's why there are, so many lawyer jokes out there.
Oh yeah.
What do you say to Jay New, who says, I'm trying to be sympathetic for this girl. Sure, mental health is a problem, but to blame that and medicine is too far for me. She's a killer.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of being with someone who has a mental illness that's been placed on the wrong medication, but the effects of it are detrimental. I'm not sure if you've ever seen someone who's bipolar or be in a hypomanic state, but you go several days without sleeping. You can't tell me that's not having a mental health crisis, but that's not affecting you. I mean, hell, that's what we do to torture people when we're trying to get intelligence information out of them, is we disorient them to time, space, and we give them sleep deprivation. So, I mean, we know as a society and as intellectuals that putting someone in that condition breaks them. How do you think it's not breaking this child?
Yeah. Well, I think she's saying that, before the fact.
Oh, but
before being
she never killed anybody. She was never violent before this fact. I mean, that's the thing. There was never one episode of violence, of disobedience, of disciplinary actions. I mean, this was not a child that was dangerous or troubled I mean, the entire community has been shocked and floored. I mean, people can't get over that this happened. And again, I would send you back to, you don't know this kid at all, but the people who knew her and loved her the best before March 19th have all stood by her, from her best friends to her maternal grandparents. And if you think that you know better than Ashley's mom and dad and Carly's grandfather and grandmother about who Ashley is and what Ashley would want for her child and who Carly is and the kind of kid she is, well, then a tip of the hat to you, because I mean, you must be psychic.
I think you're my new best friend.
That's what I just keep coming back to is people don't even know that these things they're assuming or they're just assumptions.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I think like compassion and grace and understanding is just, I don't know if there's just so few of us out there that still have it, because there's just so many people out there that are just so quick to just convict everyone.
And look, and and I get it in a way, like it's scary to have to think about the fact that, your kid could be having problems that you don't know about that are significant. Like that's scary. I'm a mom. I get that.
Mhm.
It's scary to think that at any point in your life, you might start suffering from, or exhibiting issues of a mental illness. I mean, I get that. We don't like having to accept that there's so much about our everyday lives that are out of our control. It's
Mhm.
scary and we don't like to think about it. So we distance ourselves from it and we make them different. Like they're different. They're not like me. I don't have to worry about this happening to me because of XYZ. I mean, I get wanting to put a divider down and to separate yourself so you can feel safer and more protected, but it's just not the truth. And I think it sort of plays into the stigma that we still have about mental health in this country.
Very Raven, thank you for your matcha latte. And also, Bridget, for those people who are out there who did not watch our first show together, you have personal experience with this. And that is why you took this case for free, pro bono, because of your brother. And so you've already talked about it. So I don't feel like I'm putting you on the spot, but
No. And I like talking about my younger brother. I really loved him. Actually, I have a picture of him. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, go get it.
I was going to say, it's right here. I won't have to move too far. I don't know how well this is going to come across the screen.
Oh, yeah, we could see it. I'll give you full screen for a second.
Yep. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, yeah. He's a cutie.
He was very handsome. And he was very, likable, beloved. He sort of had, I called it the JFK personality. Everybody wanted, he's bigger than, larger than life. Everyone wanted to know him. He was very funny. He was a big practical joker. I used to say he was born to be the president of a fraternity in the sense that he was a little mischievous, prankster, funny, fun-loving guy, but never at anyone else's expense. And everyone just really, liked Brad. Everyone knew him. Everyone wanted to be around him, but they didn't know.
Well, tell his story again for the people who didn't watch our first show together, if you don't mind.
Yeah. My younger brother had some mental health issues, and because of his mental health issues, he too was using prescription medication to help cope, and marijuana to help kind of cope with his symptoms. He went to a doctor to get some help, and because of the medication he was put on, it made him very violent. I think the day or 2 days before he died, he pointed a gun at my mom, which was very frightening for her. And she and my dad were trying to get him help. And then 2 days later, my younger brother committed suicide. So I know that this happens. He was 33 at the time.
And how long had he been on the medication?
He had been on the medication for a very short period of time.
So because of that and your own personal experiences, and again, I am so sorry for your loss. It's just devastating. How long ago was this?
Oh gosh, this was back in June of 2021.
Okay, still not that long ago. Only 3 years. And so when you became involved with this case, it broke your heart, because having been through that, you have more empathy and understanding and compassion for how that could happen.
And it is not true that being placed on the wrong medication for, psychological or psychiatric issues can make you just suicidal, not violent. That's not the truth. It can make you out of your mind. You don't know what you're doing. But I know from my own experience. And one of the things that my mom has said, what she told me after watching Carly's trial was that I just think back to that day with Brad, and I just keep thinking that even if my son would have shot me and I would have died, I would still have wanted my son to get help. I wouldn't have wanted him to go to prison. I would have still wanted him to have the best thing for his life. And I would have still wanted him to have a life because I gave it to him, and I think as any mom, I don't know Ashley, I never met her, but everyone that does know Ashley has said a million different times that Heath has said, I will keep telling the truth for Carly, regardless of how anybody tries to retaliate against me, because Ashley would be rolling over in her grave if she knew they were trying to make Carly go to jail for the rest of her life, if they were charging Carly like this, if Carly was fixing to have to go to an adult detention center. Ashley's life revolved around this child. And I think anybody who's a parent understands that's what it's like to be a parent. Like once you have a kid, whether it's adopted or a stepchild that you take on as your own or you give birth, like it's not about you anymore.
Right.
I mean, and I think the verdict and the sentence was so adverse to what Ashley ever would have wanted for a child. And while I don't know her personally, that's what her parents, her sister, and her husband tell me. And as a mom, that's what I understand. And that's what my mom tells me, who was in a similar situation.
My heart breaks for your family, for your parents, for you. I don't think that any parent should ever bury a child. I don't think that that's the natural order of things. And people are saying, where's the sympathy for Ashley? My heart breaks for Ashley too.
Nobody was ever not sympathetic to Ashley. And I really tried in my closing to point out that because of the wonderful mother that Ashley was, and because of how much she loved her child, was the light of her life, that everything about Ashley's life revolved around Carly. She was overprotective, understandably, because she had lost a child.
Mm-hmm.
That she would never put Carly at risk.
I'm sorry, say that again.
That she would have never put Carly at risk by putting her on any psychotic or antidepressant medication, because Ashley herself had a negative reaction to an antidepressant. So the fact that Ashley made that decision as a mom who had already lost one child to put her other child on an antidepressant when she knew what the consequences could be because she'd experienced them themselves tells you how bad it was and how human it was for parents to try to minimize issues with their child. But I mean, it had to be so much worse than what anybody was reporting for Ashley to make the decision and be okay with her child ever going on an antidepressant to begin with.
And I'm looking through my trial notes here, which I have an entire legal pad full of trial notes. But there was one witness, and maybe you can refresh my recollection on who testified to this, that Carly was up from 25 milligrams of Zoloft to 50 milligrams from Zoloft, and reported to this provider that she felt like a zombie on 50 milligrams of Zoloft, and that who testified to that? Was it
Clark?
Dr.
I think it was Clark. I think it was Clark and Olivia Lieber.
And Olivia Lieber was she the nurse practitioner?
Yeah.
Right. So she was in charge of prescribing her meds, right? And some of those visits were by telehealth, which I have a problem with telehealth for certain things. But she was a nurse practitioner who was prescribing her these, antidepressants, SSRIs, right? And so Carly was reporting to her that she felt like a zombie on Zoloft. So right away, there's issues with this medication. So she tells her to wean off the Zoloft, which apparently didn't happen because she quit it cold turkey. That's when they put her on the Lexapro. And then this happened within days. Mm-hmm. So for anybody out there who's thinking, oh, that's a ridiculous excuse, look into it.
Yeah.
Because it's real. And the judge would not allow you to put in certain evidence about that. Right? Because I remember that during pretrial, there was a hearing and he's like, yeah, no, you can't talk about that. That's the whole case.
Yeah.
Or part of it.
Well, and I really wish we could have had Ashley's mom testify, Miss Breland, that he struck. But again, these are issues that we're raising in our motion for new trial or judgment, notwithstanding the verdict. I'm not sure how successful we'll be, but I'm hoping that.
Right. I mean, they're rarely granted, let's say.
It's never. I know.
It'll go to an appeals court. We'll come watch you on TV when they have the hearing. I guess obviously you don't know. You just filed this last week, so they'll have to respond.
Yeah, I've reached out about setting the date, but I haven't heard back yet.
So we will watch that live when it happens because we are here for you. Thank you, Shoshana. Pharma is guilty of so many crimes. Many can't bear to know. Yeah, I mean, look at the OxyContin.
And if you think medication, even with black label box warnings, are being labeled correctly, I would like to refer us all back to how the FDA signed off on and approved of OxyContin being marketed and labeled as the only non-addictive pain medication on the market.
Yep.
Like that was FDA approved. So if you think that if they can do it with one medication, they can do it with others. Yeah.
Go back and watch Dope Sick. For those of you who haven't seen Dope Sick, it's about 8 or 9 or 10 episodes. I think it's on Hulu with Michael Keaton, and it is all about how the manufacturer of OxyContin had a very specific plan to get people in poor mining towns addicted to their drug. And they kept making bigger and bigger and bigger doses of it. And they made billions and billions of dollars. And their intent was clear. They wanted everybody hooked on it. And the opioid crisis is real. It's still happening. And it's criminal, in my opinion. Pregnant pause. Thanks for the 50. She changed their username to Pregnant Pause after Dewey K. Arthur slammed his gavel and said, "We're going to take a pregnant pause." I love that. Thank you for the 50. You're so generous. I was wondering if her mom finding her stuff and the mom took control of it. You never know how much she owed to others or what position it put her in.
Carly didn't know anything to anybody. BW, the minor who testified during her trial, said that she had bought the vapes for Carly. And so Carly didn't know anything to anybody. And secondly, we don't know what her mom didn't find. Also, if your mom finding that you have an extra cell phone in your room or finding marijuana in your teenager's room causes a teenager to kill their mom, we would have an epidemic of teens murdering their parents across this country that we just don't have. So that theory just doesn't fly with me. I mean, most kids get in trouble for drinking a beer before they're 18 or DUIs while they're in high school or getting into a fight at school for something or getting pregnant in high school. They don't kill their moms. I mean, most of them are getting in trouble for having weed in high school in one form or a vape. I mean, I know vaping is a huge thing now, like whether it's marijuana or just tobacco. I mean, that is not logical though. Like just finding that would not cause somebody to just shoot their parent.
That's what a lot of people think, that she was mad that her mother was snooping in her room. Nina says, after all, there must be a reason why she didn't kill random people. She killed her closest person. That was unconsciously her choice. Why? I think there has to be a why.
Yeah. I mean, other than she was just not a violent person. I can't tell you what was going on in Carly's mind at that time.
I mean, a combination of undiagnosed mental illness, severe mental illness from both sides of her family, that's hereditary, and being on perhaps the wrong medication that can have, for those of you who know, crazy side effects.
But I would call that why reasonable doubt.
Yeah, right. And the judge wouldn't give the jury a definition of reasonable doubt. That was in your motion too.
Yeah.
Is that something that's typically done?
A little bit. I mean, it really depends on the judge. Now, what's not typically done is they are really hard pressed on letting either attorney even get near trying to define reasonable doubt.
Right.
I think the most we can say is it's up to each individual person to define it themselves. But I mean, we would be in so much trouble if we had tried into the jury to define reasonable doubt.
Right. Like if you had said something like, if you're back there, thinking about other ways or why this happened.
You still have to ask yourself why, then that's reasonable doubt.
Right.
If there is any element of this case that you are still wondering why, that is reasonable doubt, which it is.
Yes.
You can't do it.
I know, that would have been great. Lisa, thanks for the 10. Do you find juries are becoming dismissive, impatient, and distrustful of expert witnesses, ignoring those with years of experience, elderly, while operating with enough knowledge to be dangerously wrong? That's a great question, Lisa.
That is a good question. I don't know. I don't know how. I think most. I feel bad saying this because I've never been a juror before, and no one would ever let me be a juror since I'm
Me
an
neither.
They will never let an attorney or paralegal on a jury. But I don't know. I feel like most people are willing to rely on expert testimonies if they find that expert to be credible. And I think that just comes down to each individual. Same with any other testimony. It just depends on whether that testimony comes across as credible or not.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would say in a criminal case, I don't know that I would say I find that people are distrustful or impatient of experts or dismissive. Maybe in a civil case, I could see that where you feel like it's just hired guns dueling it out. But I think when you have something this big on the line, I think people are, especially when you're dealing with mental health, you want to hear and you're more trusting of someone with expertise in that field.
You had 8 women on the jury, on the deliberating jury?
That sounds right. Yes.
8 women and 4 men, I think.
I feel like we had more men than that, though, but that might be the alternates.
I can't remember. Yeah, I remember 2 men were called as alternates. You and I had a conversation off camera that in a lot of ways, women are more judgmental. Like you think that you're picking women and they're going to be sympathetic. She's a young girl, they're mothers. But in a lot of ways, we see women being more judgmental than men.
Absolutely. And I think too, I think for whatever reason, our tendency in society now is to pass judgment more quickly and more readily than we would extend grace or, understanding. But I do think that when you're given permission to judge someone, it sort of heightens your ability. And one of the things that I joked with the potential jurors about at rder was how I would never, ever let my mom be on a jury because she's a true crime fan and she thinks she has, like, all of her years of watching 2020 has imbued her with forensic expertise. And can't nobody tell her nothing. Like, she already knows what they should have been doing.
Right.
And I remember maybe the first day after the trial, she called me and she asked some question like, I can't remember how, it was, I don't know that this was it exactly, but it was something equally ridiculous. Like, so first they say that the cops first say that they were looking for video footage when they first came to the house. Then the next cop said they didn't even think about it. Which one was it? And I was like, Mom, I don't think that makes no difference in this case. Like, that is not, you're not hitting on hard facts that I'm going to bring up ever. So,
well, she's watching today. Hello, Bridget's mom.
Yeah. But
hit the subscribe button.
Yeah. But I do. And funnily enough, she is, my mom did say she was making a t-shirt of Judge Arthur slamming his fist down. And underneath it was going to say, let's take a pregnant pause. And she was going to sell those to help fund Carly's defense. So,
all right. Yeah.
She actually will.
People love t-shirts and they loved that moment.
Yeah, that was like the biggest moment of the trial, I feel like.
I rewound it like 3 times. We couldn't get enough of it. Kate. Ms. Todd, you were such an amazing advocate for Carly and she's so lucky to have you in her life. We need more Melanie Bridget shows. You two are great. Oh, thank you, Kate. Thank you. Thank you, Sherry, for gifting a membership. Max says, may we all have more compassion, even in seemingly impossible circumstances. Amen. True. Amen, Max. Radine, the GoFundMe is beautiful. I'm making a plea for everyone here to contribute at the end of this episode, any amount. I'm so passionate about this. Thank you, Radine Dempsey, so much.
So much. And
so
really,
much.
Any little amount really does help because between the transcripts, the court cost and fees, Kevin and I are not looking to draw a salary out of anything that you contribute. So just thank you so much.
Somebody asked if she got an MRI of her brain because now they have this new technology that they say can, and
we couldn't afford it.
And now maybe you will be able to with this.
Yeah, I would hope so.
With these
That's
funds,
one of the
maybe
things we'd like to do.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Blessed Mom from Texas. Why was Carly tried as an adult? The law in Mississippi says that anybody who commits a
Anyone
murder
over the age of 13 who commits a crime with a firearm, like a gun, can be charged as an adult.
Also, she says, I was addicted to pain meds for years and it's no joke. Been clean since 20. Like, congratulations. That is one of the hardest things to do,
Wonderful.
to quit
I'm so
opioids. So
proud of you for your sobriety.
so proud. Oh, my screen just totally did something weird. Thank you. Big
Thank you
Pharma
for
is a problem.
sharing that.
Say that again.
I said, and thank you for sharing that. I know people still have a sense of shame, even when they, are sober and have been sober for years, about admitting the struggles they've been through. And that's something I hope we can all change too, where we become more open and more welcoming of people talking about things that we typically find embarrassing, because I don't think you have anything to be embarrassed about when you overcome a struggle like that. I think congratulations to you and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, we do that here. We do that here. A lot of people share their experiences to try and help other people understand. Attorney Todd, did you guys trying to object to Dr. Pickett being the expert to his lack of experience with children and adolescents?
Oh yeah, I mean, we made sure he was not qualified as an expert in the field of child and adolescent psychiatry. And then Kevin really drove that point home on cross-examination. Like, you have no experience. You've never evaluated a child before.
Yes, 100%. Thank you so much, Lori, for the Venmo, who says info about abuse, Jehovah's Witness. The father was said to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh yeah, he is.
She says, it's important inside Jehovah's Witnesses. I was born and raised in this cult. Much of my trauma began there. I have so much information about abuse. The father, Carly's father, was said to be a Jehovah's Witness. Carly, I was born or raised in her early years with this father. Thank you, Lori, for your Venmo and for your sharing your story, and to all of you who share your stories, for trying to help people understand. It's invaluable.
And I know and thank you for sharing that too, because I know there's a lot of shame about people who've survived any type of abuse, child abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence. It's really hard to talk about those things and not feel ashamed, but thank you for sharing that. And I think one of the most rewarding things about working on this case is I've had so many people from all over the country and other nations, send me emails and telling me about their own struggles with mental health issues or their children's struggles with mental health issues. And I thank everybody for that, because it's, I appreciate that. And I know it's not easy to talk about or share with others. And I just hope that you'll be able, in your own daily walks of life, to be able to share that with other people, so we can sort of, as a society, get rid of the stigma regarding mental health issues and addiction.
And have some more understanding and compassion for those
Absolutely
who suffer from such things. Courtney, Attorney Todd, have you considered contacting the Medical Justice Alliance for some of these additional expert issues, such as MRI? They have great pro bono resources for these situations.
We are reaching out to them for the appeal. There would have been no time during the course of the trial to do that. And even getting her released from detention to go take her to have a neurologist do an exam, that would have been nearly impossible, but we're hoping to get that now. Also, we have reached out to, the ACLU for help with her appeal.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
that would be amazing. I'm scrolling below the National DV hotline for anybody who needs that number. They have been life-saving for so many of you and so many others. And please, if you need the number, it's right there scrolling for you. Kale Burke. Oh, and I'll read it to you. 1-800-799-7233, which is also 799 SAFE, I believe. Kale Burke, antidepressants carry a US FDA black box warning about risk of increased suicidal thinking and behavior in some individuals under the age of 25. Yes.
Yes.
Suicidal behavior, but it could also be homicidal behavior.
I mean, it's aggression. Aggression is aggression. Yeah, it can be homicidal as well.
Nina Mel, your thoughts on Chad Dorman executed his 3 sons and Carly executed her mom. I think we're seeing an uptick, or maybe not. I mean, these cases are more public now than they've ever been. We have, 24/7 news channels. We're seeing them more often. It's disturbing. Chad Dorman is an adult. Carly is a child. So I think they're both horrific cases, but I don't know what you mean by my thoughts, but I think it's tragic.
Yes. I mean, I couldn't imagine as a parent hurting your child.
Mm-hmm. No. And I mean, it's All right, we're going to wrap. So this is the last one. Last one, Bianca. Oh, Bridget, you're a breath of fresh air. I think people who never had to deal with mental health will never understand. Lovely lady supporting Carly and all the work that you do.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys all for your support of Carly and our case. And I just hope we can all do better as a country for our kids.
We are hoping and praying for you. One more. Okay, I said one more, but this is really one more. Frankie's mom, thanks for the 5. Will you do an Amazon gift list when Carly is settled so we can send
Yes,
her?
I will. I promise.
And that is how kind and generous all of my viewers are here in the chat. And thank you to all of you for making this such a kind and safe place to be, and for your empathy and compassion, and for being willing to listen to the real story, and for not believing everything that you read out there on the internet, and for understanding that, the children are our future. Like, we need
absolutely.
to be better.
And by throwing people away and for the rest of their lives, especially a kid, nobody benefits from that. There's no benefit. So there's no winning. Nobody won this case.
Nobody was asking for Carly to be let back out on the street. I think that's like the misunderstanding here. Not even her family wanted her to just be set free to go roam the streets.
They knew that there were issues that needed to be addressed. But if anybody thinks at the end of the day that somebody won this criminal case, I don't think you were watching it.
There are no winners here. If Ashley's looking down, she's so appreciative of Bridget Todd. She would have wanted her daughter to have someone like Bridget. It takes a village.
It does take a village. Thank you
That
so
just
much.
makes me want to cry. When is the judge expected to rule on the motion? Well, they have to oppose it first, and then.
Oh yeah, it's going to be opposed.
Yeah, and then I don't know how long it takes in Mississippi to get a hearing on that, but
I think it probably won't take too long to get a hearing. And I do think Judge Arthur, really cared about this case and really cared about Carly having to be in solitary confinement. And I'm hoping that he will, and he did not seem to like the verdict or the sentence at all. So I'm hoping that
that's so too.
he might be open to a new trial.
Oh my God. Had you ever had a case in front of him before?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. So you knew his style. I really liked him. I thought he was no nonsense. I found him pushing this case down the track as quickly as possible to be in some way, he wanted Carly out of there, in my opinion. That was the vibe that I got from him. And I feel like he's really a warrior for justice too. Like, God bless Dewey K. Arthur. There needs to be more judges. Like, we've seen some pretty crappy judges since we've been doing trial watch. And thoughts.
He made the state turn over. The DA's office in Rankin County is notorious for only giving discovery to criminal defense attorneys a week or two before the trial. And by God, he made them turn it over to us at a hearing on June 4th by 5 p.m. at the end of that day. So I can't say that he was not a good judge or that he was not fair to Carly.
Yeah. Yeah. Any final thoughts before we go?
No, I just want to thank everybody for their support. And I just want to tell you how much it means to Carly and Carly's maternal grandparents when you donate to her fund. It really sort of restores my faith in humanity. And I think her maternal grandparents' faith in humanity. And I promise you, if you donate even $1, her sweet maternal grandfather is going to write you a personal thank you note. Oh. And that's been really good for him too, because just the amount of grief that they're experiencing, and to see somebody else like rooting for his granddaughter or, expressing emotion or concern, that's so restorative. Yeah,
it is. The fund is pinned to the chat, and it is also in the video description below, and it is through Go Get Funding. So when we started today, it was at something like $500. And now it's up over $2,000. It's at $2,015. So for those of you who have been so kind, remember, Bridget and Kevin Camp are working for free. They have a personal connection to this case, and they wanted to help Carly and her family. And what a gift. What a gift. There needs to be more people like you.
Oh, thank you.
And I am honored.
I think there are.
I am honored to have met you through this case, and I am honored that you responded to my email when I reached out to you. I didn't even know if I had the right email. It was just I was so outraged that I wanted to talk to you about this case because we watched you through the trial.
I'm so glad you did. And thank you for your unbiased, fair coverage to Carly. That's so much more than most people were giving her. I have been sent so many segments or clips from these crazy things online, or like some local blogger who apparently hates Kevin and I. It's just really bizarre. But I mean, like, you can hate me all day long. That's fine, because I don't think about you at all. But I mean, I don't
think about you at all. That's the best.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, like, I think about the people I like and care about, but if there's just some random person out there hating me, it's not affecting my day.
I think there's so many people that have way too much time on their hands to just spew hatred. Thank you, Al Salt, who's thanking us for our continued conversation and steps toward justice. Beautiful, brilliant bullshit. Thank you, Al
And
Salt.
everybody vote if you want to change things, especially about our legal system. You know, the people we vote into office are the ones who make and change our laws. So remember that.
That's right. Even in the off-year elections that are not presidential, you need to vote in every election, especially in states where you're voting for judges. Like here in New York, we vote for our judges.
Same in Mississippi.
You need to look into what these judges are, what their platforms are, what their opinions are, other opinions they've written. You need to know.
How they ruled in other cases.
Thank you, Mama She, for your 10. And to all of you out there who are watching, we thank you so very much for your kindness, generosity, empathy, and grace, and for watching. And to the viewers, replay viewers, thank you. I love you all so very much. And to my channel members and to my moderators who had a really hard time today, I'm sure, for 2 hours and 46 minutes, keeping it classy in the chat. You guys are amazing. Without you, I don't have a channel. So I'm sure she will come back. Bridget will come back, right?
Oh, of course.
They
Anytime.
want you
Anytime.
back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friends. Again, I will see you again today, at least at some point. I need to get some Karen Reed stuff to go over, and I need to recap the Boulder mass shooting trial. So just make sure you have notifications set so that you can see when that's going to be, because I need to plan it first and put it up. But again, thank you so much, Bridget, for coming here today and for opening a lot of people's eyes and for being a voice for justice and for people who don't have a voice either.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me. And thank you all for caring enough to listen.
Peace, everybody. See you soon.